A world unlike any other was forged not out of necessity or destiny, but out of divine boredom. A god, tired of eternity, sculpted a twisted realm for his amusement, giving birth to what would be known as the Abyss. Into this chaotic creation, he tossed his own handcrafted beings. One by one, they plummeted into the abyss, their purpose simple: destroy everything in sight. The carnage was endless. With no time to grieve or prepare, humanity was forced into a fight for survival. There was no room for peace or retreat, only bloodshed. They either fought or they were annihilated. The only way to endure was to stand knee-deep in corpses, swinging blades through beasts and fellow men alike. In this realm, war was life itself, and those who managed to survive earned the twisted favor of the gods. To these higher beings, nothing was more thrilling than the spectacle of human agony. To them, this grotesque show was peak entertainment. Laughter echoed in the heavens as mortals cried out on their battlefield of despair. Amid that chaos, we see the aftermath of a brutal conflict. Massive dragon corpses litter the land alongside fallen warriors. Not a single victor stands among the dead. One bloodied man gasps his last breaths before collapsing in front of a colossal dragon. Its golden scales shimmer with divine menace. The beast doesn't hesitate. With a single massive stomp, it crushes the man beneath its claw, grinding out what little life remained. Despite being moments from death, the man with purple hair laughs maniacally, his expression wild with defiance as he watches the dragon. His body racked with pain, he still manages to throw curses at the creature. His final moments are spent taunting the beast that just ended him. The dragon begins charging energy in its mouth, preparing to obliterate the man completely. But the dying warrior's thoughts drift elsewhere. He thinks of them. If anyone could succeed in this madness, it would be those people, especially one of them. Far away, in a ruined chamber glowing with ancient magic, a woman holding a golden sigil declares that the final group of humans has just perished. She turns slowly to face to others, solemn and resolved. Only a handful remain now. Humanity's final hope lies within these walls. These four are all that's left in a world drowned in warfare and grief. No more reinforcements, no second chances. The woman's name is Aris. Her white hair flows beneath golden armor, and she holds a long spear with grace. Her calm expression hides fierce power. Beside her is Seelan, a blonde mage with a sun-carved staff. His eyes glimmer with intellect, his stance grounded by experience. Next stands Kang Tai, a hulking warrior clad in beast-hide armor. His massive sword looks like it was forged for dragons, not men. But the fourth, he sits alone among the shattered stones, quiet, wounded, unmoving. His name, Kang Hansu. His armor is dark, his eyes half closed. Aris steps forward, voice gentle but firm. She reminds them they're the final line, the only ones who can rewrite humanity's fate. Hansu blinks, slowly, exhaustion etched into every scar across his body. His strength may be fading, but the fire within still simmers. Seelan explains that they are standing in the chamber of Arenal's temporal jewel, divine relic capable of reversing time. It's humanity's final trump card. This jewel is a legend, a sphere with the power to send a single soul back through time. Only one, no more. Todd, another warrior among them, breaks the silence. He wants them to decide who will go back. His tone is bold, almost too casual for the moment. He puffs up his chest, suggesting that the strongest among them should go. Maybe himself. He flexes subtly, awaiting validation. Keelan smirks at Todd's arrogance, mocking him. And here, I thought you were about to say something smart for once. But before things escalate, Aris cuts in, her voice commanding. There's no time to bicker. The golden dragons will be here soon if they're not already. She reminds them all the Valkyries sent to battle have fallen. The monsters are closing in. They must act now, no matter how unfair the decision may seem. With calm steps, she walks toward one of them. The decision has already been made. Only one among them can return to the past. Looking directly into his eyes, Aris softly calls Hansu's name. The boy doesn't flinch, his gaze remains fixed on his bruised hand. He hesitates, questioning aloud whether he's truly the right one to go. So many years, so many battles. Dying now wouldn't be so bad. Even as he speaks, his hand trembles not from fear, but from the weight of memory. Endless fights, endless sacrifice. Could he really change it all? Aris kneels beside him, him, placing her hand over his. Her voice is warm but resolute. "Don't say that. You carry everyone's hope." Her words are soft, yet they pierce through his hesitation. Her eyes shine not with tears, but with belief. Pure, unwavering belief. As their hands touch, Hansu lifts his head slightly. Around him, his comrades are watching, silent but supportive. Keelan nods. "She's right. You started 20 years behind us, and now you're standing side by side with us." Ceylon chimes in. "If you had awakened your powers just 5 years earlier, this world would be a very different place." Even Todd, still somewhat smug, admits the truth. "They've got a point. You've earned this. But hey, if you don't want it, I'll go instead." He jokes about collecting all the loot he missed the first time, but Aris throws him a glare so sharp he practically jumps, backpedaling fast. Todd quickly changes his tone. "Kidding. Obviously, Hansu's the only one who can handle this." Hansu lets out a faint smile. Even now, in the face of extinction, they still tease each other like old friends. Slowly, he rises to his feet. There's no hesitation left. His eyes are clear, his steps firm. "It's time." As Hansu walks toward the temporal jewel, the other three step aside, not out of fear, but out of reverence. They know the world's survival depends on him. They won't stop him. They won't say goodbye. They simply trust him. But then a deafening roar. The entire chamber shakes. Cracks burst across the ceiling, like lightning across stone. All heads turn upward as a monstrous force tears the structure apart. A dragon, no, the dragon bursts through with unstoppable fury. The golden dragon king descends, its massive body causing stones to rain down from above. Its very presence warps the air. Fire churns in its maw, ready to incinerate them all. Death is seconds away. Ceylon reacts instantly. He raises his voice, shouting for everyone to hold the line. Then, with the flick of his staff, he casts a blinding spell. "Keep it distracted," he yells, already channeling more energy. The battle erupts into chaos once more. Todd races to intercept a falling boulder, catching it just before it crushes Aris. "Don't worry," he grins. "It's my time to shine." Weapon in hand, Aris twirls her spear and launches herself at the dragon, swift and deadly. Around them, more dragons gather, a second wave, but she doesn't back down. With a shout, she slams her spear into the ground, making it glow and grow larger. "Now, Todd." Flames burst from Todd's sword as he roars back. "Didn't need to tell me twice." His whole body ignites as he charges into the fray. Todd lunges forward, his flaming sword slicing through the air like a comet. Dragons shriek as the whirlwind of fire tears them apart, but the Dragon King is fast. It dodges the strike and counters instantly. A flash of golden claws slashes toward Ty, and the impact nearly crushes him. Gritting his teeth, he digs his blade into the ground to absorb the blow. Keelan, sensing the urgency, yells for Hansu to focus. There's no time to hesitate. As chaos surrounds them, Keelan opens his spellbook and starts drawing a powerful formation in the air, his hands glowing with magical light. He warns Hansu that his weapon is gone, shattered beyond use. Hansu must forget this place now. There's nothing left here for him. Aris solemnly agrees. Even in her grief, she keeps her expression firm. "You need to leave," she says quietly but urgently. She pleads with Hansu not to turn away from the people who believe in him. Even if they're annoying or burdensome, they still matter. With a gentle yet sorrowful smile, she asks him to live and live for others. "Promise me," she whispers. "Take care of them. This time. Listen." For a moment, Hansu says nothing, but then he nods quietly. "I'll try," he replies. His voice is steady, if a little heavy. Rhys stands and turns back toward the battle. "You have to go now," she says. "We'll handle the rest." Her eyes lift to the sky, her heart steady even as the world falls around her. Ceylon, hearing all this, doesn't flinch. He stares ahead with his usual calm, then apologizes softly to Hansu, urging him to pay attention. The mage begins casting an advanced golden spell. Symbols shimmer in the air as he mutters ancient words under his breath. He says there's no reason to kill unnecessarily, but at the same time, there can be no mercy for those who will only cause more destruction in this war. Selen's voice deepens. "Only protect those who deserve it, even if your path is paved in blood. Do what's best for humanity." Then, narrowing his eyes, he adds one final request. Hansu must make sure to eliminate the Berserker monarch Clementine. He pauses, holding the final rune in place. "Do you understand?" he asks one last time. Hansu doesn't speak. He just nods, his eyes locked with Selen's, full of unshakable determination. The magical circle blazes with light. Power pours through the book and into the artifact. The temporal jewel begins to hum with divine energy, Blades surrounding the jewel start spinning rapidly, glowing brighter with every rotation. Time itself starts to bend. Hansu stands silently before the artifact, absorbing the moment. This is it. Maurice and Todd step back, watching. There's no need for words. Their smiles say everything. We believe in you. Keelan joins his glowing hands, completing the incantation. A massive magical seal appears above them, lighting up the entire blackened chamber. The temporal jewel pulses violently, then releases a blinding surge of light. Lightning explodes outward in every direction. The world turns white. For a moment, nothing exists. Only the sound of distant cries. A mother screaming for her son. Voices echo in confusion, then darkness again. When vision returns, Hansu is staring at his own hand. The skin is whole, clean, unscarred. Around him, an eerie stillness hangs in the air. The city is broken, abandoned. It feels like a post-apocalyptic ghost town. A strange green light glows in the distance, casting an otherworldly hue across the ruins. But Hansu doesn't look afraid. He smiles. A slow, confident smile. It worked, he murmurs. This time, I won't fail. People begin appearing across the landscape, dozens, hundreds, all disoriented, some yelling, others sobbing. They have no idea where they are or what just happened. Some search desperately for their loved ones, calling names that vanish into the wind. A man grabs another by the collar, shouting in panic, demanding answers. The other can only stammer he knows nothing. Hansu watches, understanding their confusion. Of course, they're lost, he mutters. They've just been dragged into another world. With no warning, he recalls his own past. The year of his birth was already strange, but things escalated quickly. Initially, only 100 people were pulled in, but that number kept growing. And soon, everything spiraled out of control. On the day he turned 20, something massive appeared in the sky. A rift like a colossal eye opened above, glowing with unnatural light. Then he was gone, swallowed by the unknown. His phone hit the pavement as his body vanished into the portal. That's when it all began. That realm, now known as the Abyss, devoured other worlds. It became a nexus of despair, an impact zone of collapsed dimensions. Those who arrived first gained powers early. Some adapted, others were consumed. The strong preyed on the weak. Creatures too monstrous to describe turned that world into a blood-soaked wasteland. There was no law, no order, just chaos and survival. The humans who were dragged there were nothing more than prey. When the rest of the people from Earth finally arrived, the abyss cracked open fully. That was when the true war began. A war between humanity and beasts that knew only slaughter. Hansu stretches his arms. I've got 5 years, he says. 5 years to prepare. He walks forward with purpose. His strength, abilities, and runes from the past life are all gone. He's back to zero, but this time, he knows the rules. And now, it's time to make his entrance. People continue panicking. No one knows what's going on. Suddenly, the sky above begins to split. Cracks ripple through the clouds. A piercing blue light shoots down. From that rift in space, something emerges. A creature small, floating shaped like a bat with horns. Adorably strange, deceptively cute. It hovers before the crowd, blinking innocently. Everyone falls silent, eyes locked on it. The being introduces itself as an assistant fairy, sent to offer guidance for new arrivals. The humans murmur in disbelief. Was this thing supposed to help them? With a slight blush, the fairy politely asks everyone to pay attention. It has important announcements to make. Hansu narrows his eyes. He remembers this one. He mutters under his breath. That quick procedure she's talking about. It's a lie. She's the trigger. The chaos starts here. The fairy begins her speech, welcoming the newcomers to the other world. She calls it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but one man scoffs. I don't care about this. I just want to go home, he says, turning away. The fairy's cute face contorts into something terrifying. In an instant, her voice drops to a growl. Silence, she hisses. And with the snap of her fingers, a hole erupts in the man's shoulder. Blood sprays. He screams, then vanishes into dust. Screams follow. Panic spreads like wildfire. People run, beg, fall, but there is no escape. The fairy chuckles. I told you, she says sweetly. I don't like loud people. Terror grips the crowd as more are killed with a flick of her fingers. Her smile returns, but now, it's hollow and cruel. She tells them again. This is a place of true freedom, a world with no rules, no laws, no morality. If you want to live, you kill. If you want power, you take it. She holds out a crystal-like stone. A rune, she calls it. Kill something alive, and you get one. There are 9 kinds in total. Each one grants different power. This one, she says, increases physical strength. So, who wants it? No one dares move. Then, a single hand goes up. It's Hansu. The fairy blinks. Oh, so eager. She floats over, amused. Give me your hand. He does. She places the rune in his palm, smiling darkly. She explains, under normal laws, his muscles should lift 117 kilograms. But this rune boosts it to 220, breaking every natural limit. But Hansu's expression remains flat. No excitement, no fear, just calm. She frowns. That's not the face I wanted to see. Hansu shrugs inwardly. He's heard this all before. The routine, the performance. It's boring now. Frustrated, the fairy zips away, explaining more about rune types. Each offers unique powers. None of it follows scientific logic. Wanna see another demo? She asks with fake cheer. No one volunteers. She pouts. Fine, I'll stop here. Then she issues a warning. It doesn't matter how strong your rune is. If you want to live, you must gather a lot of them. He deflects an incoming strike, countering with a clean stab to the chest. This world is full of transmigrators, he reflects. If you counted them across every dimension, their numbers would be endless. And new arrivals freshmen will keep showing up for the next 3 months. 3 months of endless tutorial waves. One of the humans nearby kills a goblin with a yell. Hansu nods. He adds that during this protected tutorial period, they still have structure. But when that time ends, they'll be thrown into a real battlefield. As Hansu continues cutting through goblins with lethal precision, he thinks to himself, no matter your perspective, this place offers a rare opportunity. He slashes another creature clean in half, its blood spraying across the ruined ground. Then he picks up a glowing rune stone from its body. Ling around. Hansu mutters, if you want to get stronger, even a little, you have to take your chances. Clenching the rune in his hand, he nods. Keelan was right, sending me back. To this point, this was the best possible choice. The battlefield is now a graveyard of corpses, both goblins and humans. Dozens lie motionless. Smoke and blood fill the air. Those who survive the fight are slumped on the ground, breathing heavily. Some whisper among themselves that everything they just witnessed felt surreal. They all glance toward the center of the bloodbath. There stands Hansu, his entire body smeared with the blood of his enemies. His presence sends chills through those watching. His expression is cold, his breath calm. He looks down at the goblin bodies with contempt. Filthy things, he mutters. Then, her people shout in grief and rage. Some curse the fairy directly, screaming at her for the deaths of their friends and loved ones. But she ignores them. With a smirk, she asks if everyone now understands how survival works here. No one answers. So. Without waiting, she waves her hand, and the invisible barrier disappears. A glowing rift forms behind her like a door to another dimension. She turns, ready to leave. Her final words are simple. Keep moving forward. Good luck. Then she walks through the rift, disappearing once more. Behind her, furious humans scream after her, calling her a monster, a demon, a liar. But it's no use. She's gone. Hansu doesn't join the shouting. He wipes the blood from his face and quietly checks his status again. Not bad, he says. For the start of a tutorial, this is good progress. He glances at his hand, where a new message appears. It's a notification. The blade he picked up from one of the goblins has now been officially registered to him as a courtesy item. Hansu tilts his head. So the system recognizes this weapon now? He grips the dagger tightly. He knows he needs to grow stronger fast. He has no time to waste. His thoughts drift to his old companions Aris, Tai, Seelan. What would they do if they were here now? He wonders. Then a memory surfaces. Someone from his past. A guy who once said something Hansu never forgot. In a flashback, we see them drinking together. The blonde-haired man chuckles as he raises his mug. Hey, Hansu, you ever heard of hidden dungeons? Hansu had blinked. Hidden dungeons? What's that? The man leaned closer, whispering like it was forbidden knowledge. They're buried deep in the tutorial zones. Brutally hard. Nobody's cleared one. They clink their glasses. I tried it once, the guy admits. Didn't finish. No one ever does. Hansu repeats the words to himself. He cleared it halfway and still managed to get strong. The man had nodded with a nostalgic smile. That's why I'm even here. That unfinished dungeon proved my strength. He added something else that stuck with Hansu forever. If I had a chance to do it again, I go straight for that dungeon. First thing, that's where the real power is. He laughed. If I had cleared it, I might have even beaten you. Back in the present, Hansu's eyes narrow. The sunlight reflects off his face. His decision is made. Hidden dungeon. That's my goal. He takes a deep breath. But before he can begin, he remembers. First, there's something else he needs to secure. The first hidden piece. He begins walking. After a while, he reaches a quiet corner of the tutorial zone. It should be somewhere around here, he says. Suddenly, voices echo from nearby. He turns and sees a group of men surrounding a woman. They're trying to force her to follow them. The woman pulls away, clearly uncomfortable, but one of the men grabs her wrist tightly. With a disturbing smile, the thug insists, we all have to work together to survive, right? His tone is playful, but there's a malicious glint in his eyes. You don't want us to die, do you? The woman hesitates, trapped by the pressure. Hansa sees this and sighs. I don't have time for this. He turns to keep searching for the hidden item, but before he can walk away, someone calls out behind him, hey, are you King Hansu? He stops, glances back. A man with headphones is staring at him in disbelief. Hansu looks puzzled. Do I know you? Before the man can respond, another voice chimes in. Blonde guy steps forward, looking annoyed. Are you serious? We were all together before we got here. Hansu's confusion grows. How do you know my name? Then it hits him. He stares at the group. Recognition floods in. They're my college friends. The memory is fuzzy, fogged by time and trauma, but it clicks. He had come here with them on that fateful trip. Then, everything fell apart. He forgot they even existed. The woman who was being harassed takes the chance to free herself from the thug's grip. She walks over to Hansu confidently. He recognizes her immediately. Yi. As she approaches, Hansu studies her face. She'll probably be a handful, he mutters internally. Yi glares at him. Where have you been? The thug, watching this unfold, scowls. What, you think you're better than us now? He sizes Hansu up, trying to intimidate him. But something about the boy's calm presence unnerves him. Then he remembers this is the guy who tore through the goblin army earlier. Still, he thinks, if we gang up on him now, while he's tired, maybe. He signals his men to get ready, but the tension draws in Hansu's friends, who gather around him protectively. The thug steps forward anyway. Yi, you can't just walk off like that, he says sweetly. And who is this guy, huh? He looks half dead. Then his smile turns threatening again. Come back now, or we'll come get you. Yi's friends bristle with anger, but Hansu stays quiet, unfazed. He steps forward slowly, eyes locked on the thug. You're a little too confident, he says softly, especially for your first fight here. The thug laughs nervously. What? In the blink of an eye, Hansu is in front of him. His expression is ice cold. You didn't even check who your opponent was, Hansu says. The thug's face twists in fear. He realizes his mistake. Hansu draws his dagger, the blade catching the light. Anything to say? The man freezes. Before he can answer, another figure appears, a man in a suit with thinning hair. Easy, the newcomer says. We're not bad people. The thug quickly bows his head. Boss. The man in the suit turns to Hansu. You should come with us, he suggests. There's strength in numbers. But Hansu's gaze sharpens. He knows this man. Knows what he becomes. In this world, the man had already shed his mask. He adapted too quickly, lost all restraint. In time, he would become a criminal, a self-serving outlaw. Hansu considers whether to eliminate him now. The opportunity is perfect. But then he hears a Reese's voice in his memory. There's no reason to kill unnecessarily, but don't show mercy to those who'll bring harm. She had also told him not to push others away, to care for them, even when it was hard. Hansu looks down, culling those warm moments. Her smile, her hope. She saved lives, he whispers. So I don't have to take them all. This isn't the time to deal with people like that. Some scum will destroy themselves without anyone's help. I'll pass, Hansu says coldly. The boss raises a brow. His underling gets angry. You think you're better than us? Let it go, the boss mutters. He's not worth it. They turn away. As they walk off, the boss mutters something disturbing. In this world, the strong rule. The gods are gone. There are no laws. That's the way I like it. He chuckles as he disappears into the shadows, his men following behind, watching them go. One of Hansu's blonde friends mutters, sometimes humans are scarier than monsters. He turns back to Hansu, still puzzled. That guy's always been weird, he whispers to the others. But this is something else. Hansu doesn't respond. His eyes are locked on the horizon. He already knows what comes next. The goal was clear and Hansen knew what he had to accomplish, no matter what. Behind him, the blonde friend looked at Kang with a puzzled expression. In his mind, Kang was always that quiet orphan who sat in the back of the class, lost in thought. He never paid him much attention before. So baffled him to see the boy acting so strangely now. Eventually, curiosity got the better of him. He walked up to Hansu and asked directly why he was pretending not to remember them. Hansu stood there for a moment, trying to come up with something believable. But in the end, he gave the worst excuse possible. Memory loss. The blonde boy furrowed his brow. Why are you even talking like that? He snapped. You sound like an old man. Mai suddenly burst out laughing at the awkward exchange. Her smile lit up the group, her radiance undeniable. Hansu watched her with a hint of regret. What a waste, he thought. Someone like her could have had a peaceful life. But beauty, he reflected, was a double-edged sword. If used right, it could be a powerful tool. If not, it became a burden. Despite everything, the group began to follow Hansu. Together, they walked through the ruined world, each step taking them deeper into the unknown. After a while, one of the girls broke the silence. We've been walking forever without saying a word. Do we even know where we're going? Mai turned to Hansu. Seriously, what's the plan? Without slowing down, Hansu answered, you'll understand when we arrive. Not long after, the girl from earlier widened her eyes, suddenly recognizing where they were. Hansu stepped to the front and confirmed it. This was their first real destination. They stood at the edge of a shattered staircase, looking down into a ruined underground station. He pointed to the dark corridor ahead and explained, that's where the hidden piece is. They approached slowly, peering at the moss-covered sign hanging above the stairs. Faded, but still legible. It read, Gangnam Station. They had all been here before in their previous lives, but now it looked like a forgotten war zone. I blinked. Why here? This doesn't make any sense. Hansu sighed internally. He didn't feel like explaining everything. Honestly, if not for what Aris told him, he would have gone alone. But he couldn't just leave them behind. So, reluctantly, he spoke up. I had a hunch, he said, forcing a casual tone. Instead of recovering lost memories, maybe I got superpowers instead. You laughed in amazement. The rest of the group looked more skeptical. One of the blonde girls turned to her boyfriend. Are we sure about this? Following him? Hansu overheard and responded before the boy could. You don't have to. I respect everyone's choice. He made it clear no one was forced to follow. But if they did, they had to accept the risks. Still irritated, the blonde boy muttered something under his breath. He hated how calm and composed Kang was acting. No one spoke as Hansu descended the stairs alone. Then, one by one, they followed. The group stepped carefully into the station, scanning the shadows and broken tiles. Wary, curious, the blonde boy asked, you sure this place is safe? Hansu replied bluntly, no, we're going to meet some old friends. His classmates scoffed. What kind of freak lives in a dump like this? They reached a lower landing. Hansu suddenly raised a hand. Wait, everyone froze. Drawing his dagger, Hansu narrowed his eyes. What's going on? Someone asked. Hansu turned to the blonde boy. Tae-sung moved left. Confused, Tae-sung looked behind him just in time to see Hansu's blade flash downward. He flinched, thinking Hansu had attacked him, throwing his hands up in fear. But then, he saw it, right where he had been standing, a yellow-skinned, green-blooded larva writh split in half by Hansu's blade. Hansu stood over it calmly. This place is a dungeon modeled after Gangnam Station. These things are green worms. They detect ground vibrations. A small rune floated up from the creature's corpse. Hansu picked it up without flinching. They hate sunlight, he added. That's why they lurk underground. Then, glancing at the group, he warned, if you get bitten by one of these things, it'll tear your flesh apart. You'll faint and die before anyone can help. Everyone stared in horror. They hadn't expected this. Seeing their fear, Hansu decided to demonstrate. Here's how to handle them. He crouched low and stabbed another worm emerging from a crack. One strike dead. The others followed his lead, attacking cautiously. Before long, they were taking down the worms with ease. Hansu observed the 4 members who adapted quickly. Useful, he thought, but then his eyes landed on the boy with headphones. He was stumbling around, hesitant and slow. Hansu walked over and gave him advice. If you're not confident, walk only on the intact tiles. Avoid loose marble. That's where they hide. Nearby, Yumi chatted with her friend. It's like playing whack-a-mole. She giggled, swinging her blade. The headphone boy, however, was struggling. He whispered to himself, "I can do this. I have to do this." But just then, a worm burst from the ground heading straight for him. He froze. Before the monster could strike, Hansu shoved him out of the way, stepping in with lightning speed and slicing the creature into pieces. The boy hit the ground, wide-eyed, staring at Hansu in awe. He finally stood up and muttered a breathless, "Thank you." But Hansu didn't even glance back. "It's obvious," he thought coldly. "That guy won't survive the final war." He kept moving. Tae-sung, impressed, looked at Hansu and asked, "How do you know all this stuff? You're predicting everything." Hansu smiled faintly. "I told you, it's my superpower." Everyone looked at him, still unsure whether to believe him. Yumi seemed impressed regardless. To change the subject. Hansu gestured to the corpses. "Shouldn't you be collecting runes?" Around them, dozens of worm bodies lay scattered. Yumi hesitated. "We figured maybe you should take them all and protect us." She smiled sheepishly, like one of those players who carries everything in a game. The others nodded. "We're not trying to be heroes," she added. "It's better if you take care of it all." Hansu sighed. "No, everyone should collect the runes from what they kill." He looked at them firmly. "If you want to travel with me, follow the basics." As they walked, Hansu explained further. "People who came before us made rules. Simple, but necessary. If you kill something, you take its rune. Group hunts. We split things based on contribution and need. But in a life or death situation." He paused. "Goodwill falls apart fast." His voice lowered. "When it happens, you'll see how brutal this world really is." He looked each of them in the eye. "Don't rely on anyone. Only your own power can be trusted. If you're weak, you'll be abandoned." The group fell silent. The word stung, but they understood. Yumi stepped forward first. "Then I'll do whatever it takes." Without waiting, she turned and started hunting again. The others exchanged glances, then nodded. "Let's go." Soon they were all off, searching for runes. No more hesitation. Hansu watched them with quiet satisfaction. "Good," he thought. "They'll adapt fast, sooner than they think." A little while later, chaos broke out again. Now, they were fighting over who got which rune. It had begun. Hansu just shook his head. Eventually, Tae-sung called out. He had found something odd. A strange, large rune. Unlike anything else they'd seen. As everyone gathered around, they saw it glowing a deep violet hue. The system identified it immediately. Essence of the Akruel troll tribe. The rune had a lizard sigil on it. Its presence radiated power. Tae-sung's eyes lit up. "If I use this, I'll get a real skill, right?" He looked at Hansu, beaming. Kang simply nodded. "I said to take whatever you find." Tae-sung grinned. "You're not gonna take it from me?" Kang shrugged. "No, go ahead." It was an easy answer, but it caught the others off guard, especially Tae-sung. Hansu stood silently, watching. The Akruel troll essence. It's a solid early game rune, he thought. It gives defense and fast regeneration. Both are vital here, he added mentally. It's also a popular rune, though it increases hunger faster than normal. In a world like this, hunger was a death sentence. Most people just ended up stealing food. Even so, the rune was valuable. But, Hansen noted, the effectiveness of any rune depends on the user's level. Those born with natural magic affinity often had hundreds of runes by now. His old friend Keelan had over 1,000, but Hansu's own path had been different. He remembered that time when he hadn't gone back yet. He tried, absorbing a rune. It shone yellow. Then, it rejected him. The glow faded. His hand trembled. He clenched his fist. Why? Then he remembered Arisa's words. Reese had looked at him gently back then, holding a rune in her hand. She had sensed something was off. She told him what he already feared, that his ability to absorb skills had a limit. Apparently, he could only learn 7. She covered part of her face as she explained it. If she had known earlier, she would have guided him toward better runes, stronger ones. In front of a scattered pile of unused runes, Hansu had felt nothing but frustration. Just 7. Most people, that would be a fatal flaw, a weakness. But somehow, that limitation birthed something greater. Because of it, his powers evolved with razor precision. Each skill sharpened beyond the norm. Even his weakest ability had grown monstrous. Take his lizard-type essence. for example, had transformed far beyond what anyone expected. That trait alone let him fight on equal footing with people who had been there 20 years longer than him. Reese had once given him a name, 7 Stars. To the others, it was just a nickname, but for Hansu, it became a reminder of who he was and what he could become. And now, holding those memories close, he looked at the glowing rune in Tae-sung's hands. The past couldn't be repeated. This time, he would make no mistakes, he recalled. Reese's voice telling him to be cautious about which 7 skills he chose. He couldn't afford another failure. If everything went according to plan, he'd pass through the tutorial safely without taking unnecessary risks. Nearby, Yumi stood beside Tae-sung, watching curiously. The rune started to glow, its purple aura intensifying. It pulsed like a heartbeat. Suddenly, it changed shape, morphing into a viscous, slime-like substance. Then it lunged toward Tae-sung, fusing with his body in an instant. A notification appeared in his system window. He had gained the physical resistance stat. The essence of the Accrual Troll tribe had been absorbed. His proficiency level 1. Tae-sung's eyes widened as he felt his stats increase. "This is amazing," he whispered. Every attribute on his screen had gone up. He smiled with satisfaction. He turned to Hansu with a smug grin. "You're an idiot," he said. "If you'd asked, I never would have handed this over." He laughed loudly, proudly. "Watch out, Kang. I'll catch up soon." Hansu just watched him silently. He was already tired of waiting around. He called out to the group, "Let's keep moving." Tae-sung strolled up next to him, grinning, and threw a hand onto Hansu's shoulder. "Let's stick together now," he said loudly. "Wouldn't want the weak ones falling behind." As he said this, he turned toward Yumi, clearly trying to impress her. "The strong should take the lead, right?" Hansu caught the change in his tone immediately. That competitive spark in Tae-sung's eyes wasn't hidden anymore. To him, Hansu had become a rival, but Hansu didn't respond. He simply removed Tae-sung's hand from his shoulder, uninterested in playing along. They continued descending deeper into the ruins, the air growing darker and colder. Yid glanced around nervously. "Why are we going down further? It's pitch black," Hansu replied calmly. "We're heading for the site." I looked confused. "There's still a train running?" Hansu didn't answer directly. "You'll see soon." As he walked, his thoughts drifted. He recalled something specific, an old piece of advice, a detail from someone he used to know. That guy's information had never been wrong. Back in his memory, they were drinking again, discussing the tutorial dungeons. Someone interrupted. A man with a sharp glare and jet black hair stepped forward, clearly annoyed. The first boy grumbled, "Who's butting into our conversation?" The new arrival sneered. "I heard someone pretending they knew something." He dropped himself between Kang and his friend, uninvited. Then, with complete confidence, he shared what he knew. "If you want to get strong fast," he said, "there's something you need from the tutorial zone. Something critical." His tone was dead serious. He claimed it was located beneath Gangnam, specifically in the subway. "The stations may be different depending on the timeline," he added, "but the path up to the 3rd floor is mostly the same." He spoke of a strange portal at the bottom of the stairs. "Pass through it," he said, "and you'll find a train. If you catch it, you're set." The catch? It wasn't easy to reach. Not at all. Back in the present, Hansu continued walking, now more confident than ever. "The hidden piece. It has to be today," he muttered, "before that train leaves." Finally, they arrived. The group stood before a massive portal twisting, glowing with blue light. It felt otherworldly. Hansu stared at it. "There it is." Mai stepped forward, stunned. "This isn't Gangnam Station," she whispered. "I've been here before. I've never seen anything like this." The energy around the portal buzzed. Lightning streaks pulsed through the air. Yumi looked concerned. "Are you really going in there? How do you know what's inside?" Hansu's answer was simple. "Instinct." He turned to the group. "And like I said earlier, anyone can back out now. No one's forcing you." Tae-sung, pumped up from his new power, scoffed. "I'm going, no matter what." Mai quickly added, "Me too." Hansu glanced at her. She knew better than anyone someone like her was at higher risk. She hadn't forgotten how that thug tried to control her earlier. Still, she stood tall. Hansu watched her carefully. "She'll have to get stronger," he thought, "even if it means taking a few scars." The blonde girl and her boyfriend decided to stay behind. They wanted to keep hunting worms in the subway instead. Sang-in hesitated, but eventually stepped forward. "I'll go," he said, forcing a brave tone. Tae-sung scoffed. "Why? You were too scared to fight worms," Sang-in snapped. "That's none of your business." Tae-sung raised a brow, annoyed. "What did you say?" "You heard me. It was childish, but it was escalating." Hansu sighed. "Enough," He walked past them both. We don't have time for this. Without another word, he entered the portal. Mai followed. Then Sang-in. Then Yumi. Sang-in said nothing, but he stayed close to Mai, ignoring Tae-sung. Watching them walk ahead, Tae-sung clenched his fists. Those bastards. Insulting me in front of her? He growled and stepped forward, following behind. Hansu felt the shift as he crossed the threshold. There were over 1,000 types of monsters in the tutorial zone. The terrain changed constantly, but there were always certain places unchanging, stable, fixed. This was one of them. He studied the environment closely, just as he remembered. Nearby, Sang-in looked around in confusion. What is this? They had entered what looked like a normal subway platform, but a strange one. Dimly lit, dusty, frozen in time. Then something caught their eye. A convenience store. Right there, inside the station. Inside, Sang-in pulled his headphones down and began digging through the shelves. Hansu walked along the store's edge, scanning the area. That guy. He told me there was a shop like this here, he whispered. A memory surfaced again. His friend had mentioned a convenience store on the second floor of the subway. It wasn't much, but it meant they were in the right place. Tae-sung wandered over to a display. Hey, check this out. They're selling knives. Tae-sung glanced at the weapons lined up on the shelves. Should we just grab everything? He asked, but Hansu was still quietly moving through the store, scanning for something else. He hadn't told them what he was really looking for. In his mind, he recalled the guy who first mentioned this place. It was less like a convenience store and more like a full-on supermarket. It had everything they needed. He stopped at a shelf and picked up a metal pot. Carrying it over to a small fire pit, he knelt down and placed the pot on top. Mai tilted her head. What are you doing? Hansu didn't answer immediately. He pulled out a small bag filled with strange contents and began dumping it into the pot. I'm cooking, he said. Mai stepped closer, curious. When she saw the bubbling green slime inside, her eyes widened. Is that worm blood? She remembered seeing him earlier, carefully extracting fluid from the bodies of the green worms and storing it in that same bag. Yes. Hansu nodded. It's warm blood. Then he pulled out a torn piece of goblin cloth and began soaking it in the mixture. He explained calmly. Goblin skin becomes dangerously toxic when it reacts with this. It's something they developed to fight the worms. As the bubbling mixture thickened, Hansu began tearing more strips of goblin fabric, adding them into the mix like ingredients in a potion. Tae-sung leaned in, sniffing the air. Actually, it smells kind of good. He smiled. Can I have a taste? Without looking up, Hansu replied. It's poison. Tae-sung choked on his own breath. Dude, at least give people a warning. It's your fault for assuming, Hansu muttered, stirring the mixture again. Yumi looked impressed. I never would have thought of this, she said. Where did you learn how to do this? Hansu gave the same answer as always. It's my superpower, he added with a smirk. Honestly, it feels like my brain's about to explode with all the stuff I remember. The image of Seelan flashed in his mind, his old mentor, the one who drilled everything into him. In that memory, Seelan was standing in front of a chalkboard, lecturing. Knowledge is everything. Without it, going back in time means nothing. Hansu and Todd sat nearby, scribbling notes or pretending to. Seelan continued. Don't go sharing this knowledge with everyone. Wait for the right moment. Then, he tapped the board again for emphasis. Information is power. If leaked recklessly, it'll accelerate the fall of the abyss. Back in the present, Hansu carefully poured the thick, purple fluid into a bowl and began dipping the blade of his sword into it. The metal sizzled faintly as the poison clung to the edge. Yumi watched him with fascination. Can I do that too? Sure, Hansu said casually. The three closest to him lit up with interest. But then Hansu held out his hand. Half a strength rune or stamina rune, he added. Tae-sung scoffed. What? Are you charging us? Stingy much? I could give it for free, Hansu replied, keeping his focus on the mixture. But in the long run, that's a terrible idea. He didn't say it out loud, but he knew from experience, unbalanced relationships fall apart fast. Mai quickly caught on. Fine, I'll give you a rune later if you let me apply the poison myself. Deal, Hansu said, handing her the bowl carefully. Tae-sung had considered snatching it out of his hands, but backed off. Whatever, I'll use it and give you the rune later, Sang-in nodded. Same. As the three of them began coating their weapons with the mixture, Hansu adjusted the backpack on his shoulders and picked up a few more items. This should be enough for now, he muttered. The others finished their prep and turned to face him. "We're ready." Hansu looked them over, then narrowed his eyes. Sangin, Yumi, and Tae-sung were loaded down with gear, huge bags slung over their backs. Hansu raised an eyebrow. "You trying to be bait?" They blinked. "If you're not using something right away," Hansu said, "bury it. Unless you plan to fight for the rest of your life carrying junk." He knelt down and began digging a small hole with his dagger. Mai laughed softly. "At first, I thought you were just the quiet type, but you're actually really smart." She watched as he showed Sang in how to pack and bury supplies. "Do you think I could get a power like yours someday?" She didn't wait for an answer. She went and buried her extra gear right away. In her heart, she was thinking, yesterday, hundreds of millions of people vanished and none of them came back, but she was still alive. She didn't want to die, not here, not now. She had to do her part. As she walked alongside Hansu, she felt lighter. Safer. Maybe if I stick close to him, she thought, I'll survive. The two of them walked side by side, and Mai smiled quietly, grateful. Tae-sung, watching them, scowled. "Acting all cool again," he muttered. "He's not even that impressive." Meanwhile, Sangin was still struggling with his gear until Tae-sung threw another bag at him. "Carry this too," he barked. Then, as if it had been eating at him, Tae-sung approached Hansu again. "That power of yours, what is it exactly?" he asked, serious now. "Can other people get it too?" Hansu looked back slowly. "Me," he said. The three others froze. "Wait, you're serious?" He nodded. They all lit up, smiles forming on their faces. Excitement flooded in his mind. Hansu remembered Selen's words again. "There are some who awaken unique powers after entering the abyss," he'd explained once. Most of what Selen had said was complicated, even nonsense at times, but the core message stuck. If someone's useless, cut them off. He could almost hear Selen and Aris arguing in his head now. That's when Tae-sung noticed Hansu zoning out. "What's wrong with you?" he asked. Before Hansu could answer, Tae-sung pushed again. "Don't get all moody just because I was hard on you earlier." But Hansu didn't care. "I'm not mad," he said. "I just don't talk much." His voice was calm, but hollow. The last 5 years before he returned, all he did was fight the monsters, fight the abyss. Eventually, hope eroded. Despair took its place, and despair dulled everything else. In his mind, he saw himself bleeding, surrounded by corpses, barely standing. Tae-sung, noticing the distant look in his eyes, chuckled. "Did you hit your head or something?" He sneered. "You've got this weird lone wolf vibe going on." Inwardly, he grumbled. If it weren't for that dumb power of his, I'd never have to put up with this. But he had a plan. He'd get stronger. Then he'd take Mai for himself. Then he'd put Kang in his place. Tae-sung opened his mouth to provoke him again, but Hansu cut him off. "Enough," he said sharply. Then he crouched, eyes narrowing. There was slime on the floor, thick, sticky, and faintly glowing. Hansu dipped 2 fingers into it and brought it close to his face. "It's not from a sword snail," he murmured. "An foul odor. No dried up organs. So, not a zombie either." That left only one option. "Land siren," he whispered. The image of the creature surfaced in his mind, a grotesque humanoid with flowing hair, scales, and fangs. Its lower half slithered like a serpent. A chill ran down his spine. He followed more trails of mucus through the passage. The pattern was unmistakable. "They're close," he warned the group. "Slow, but extremely deadly. Their venom paralyzed prey, then ripped limbs off while the victim was still conscious." But Hansu smiled. He had a plan. Tae-sung rolled his eyes. "There you go again, acting like a genius." But Hansu ignored him. He called everyone over. "Come on. You're about to see something useful." The group followed curiously. Then, in the next scene, they saw it. Glass bottles filled with alcohol, each one stuffed with a rag in its mouth. "Gasoline would be better," Hansu muttered. "But this will work." He twisted one of the bottles tightly and set it down. Another homemade Molotov, ready to burn. Mai watched in awe. "Wait, is that a bomb?" She looked around. "Did you really find all this in the convenience store?" Tae-sung rolled his eyes. "This is all Kang's magic again, right? So practical." Then, without pause, he added bitterly, "Bet he likes it here better than the real world. Here, he gets to play hero." As Hansu finished storing the last bottle in his backpack, he glanced back at Tae-sung. Tae-sung smirked. "What now? You've got Aris on one shoulder whispering peace, and Selen on the other shouting war." Hansu didn't answer. For a brief moment, he really did feel caught between them, but there was no time to dwell on it. He picked up a stick and began drawing in the dirt, Listen up. He sketched a basic formation for dots and an X. One person throws the Molotov. The others charge in with melee weapons. The front line gets priority on rune collection. Tae-sung snorted. You're terrible at drawing. But before Hansu could respond, both Yumi and Sangin raised their hands at the same time. I'll throw it, they said together. The two stared at each other. Mai tilted her head and smiled sweetly, trying to win Sangin over with charm. Please, he blushed. I mean, arguing with you feels kinda wrong. But she kept smiling, using her charm to her advantage. Eventually, Hansu stepped in. You'll both take turns. Later, Sangin stood silently, holding one of the Molotovs in his hand. His thoughts spun in circles. Where are we going? Can I really handle this? He couldn't bring himself to say it out loud, but he was scared. He looked over at Mai. She was trembling too, but she wasn't backing down. She was just as afraid, but she stayed quiet, determined. He didn't want to be left behind, but before his thoughts could spiral again, Hansu's voice cut through the air. They're coming from the tunnel ahead. A cold, eerie aura began creeping toward them. The air thickened, then came the sounds deep, inhuman grunts echoing through the dark. Hansu tensed. Get ready, he called. They're here. Yumi fumbled in her bag, grabbing a bottle. Her hands trembled, but she pulled out the lighter with resolve. I can do this, she told herself. With a flick, she lit the rag at the bottle's mouth. The flames danced wildly in her hand. Gritting her teeth, she hurled the Molotov forward with all her strength. The bottle shattered against the floor, right near the approaching siren. Alcohol splashed across its grotesque body. Fire surged up in a flash, engulfing the monster in flames. The creature let out a hideous shriek as the fire devoured it. Yumi gasped, part terrified, part proud. She'd hit it. Hansu didn't hesitate. He rushed forward with his blade, calling out, attack now. The others followed, charging into the blaze. Hansu cut down 2 more sirens in the firelight, his poisoned blade tearing through their bodies. Runes dropped with every kill. Tae-sung watched, fists clenched. He's taking all the runes again, he muttered. He pushed forward angrily, determined to prove himself. But one of the sirens spotted him first and lunged. The monstrous creature aimed its claws straight at his chest. Tae-sung panicked. He leapt back just in time, heart pounding, then instinctively slashed with his serrated dagger. The blade scraped against the siren's scales, but something strange happened. The monster twitched. Its limbs froze. Then, with a gurgling screech, it collapsed to the floor dead. Venom from the blade oozed across its corpse. Tae-sung blinked. He hadn't expected that. Looking at his weapon, now covered in thick venom, he let out a laugh. Ha, guess that stuff worked after all. Hansu jogged over, holding several runes in his hand. See? Not bad for half a rune, right? Tae-sung stared at his reflection in the dagger's surface. A glint of ambition sparked in his eyes. With this, I'll catch up to Kang in no time. All around them, chaos unfolded. Blades slashed, bottles exploded, flames roared. Hansu moved like a blur, precise, deadly data as expected, he thought. The sirens are weak to fire and venom. He set another creature ablaze, then drove his blade through its throat. Good thing I brought those bombs. But his dagger was wearing down, already losing its edge. Still, it didn't matter. That's what the poison was for. Tae-sung, meanwhile, was caught in a frenzy. He slashed at every monster he could, laughing as blood sprayed. The rush of battle clouded his senses. All he saw was red and runes. Then, he spotted 2 shimmering runes lying nearby. I'll take those, he shouted, lunging forward. But he didn't notice the siren still writhing in the shadows behind him. It hissed and spat a stream of vile, sticky slime shot through the air. It hit Tae-sung directly, knocking him backward into the dirt. He groaned, humiliated, looking around to see if anyone had watched. But the danger wasn't over. The siren rose again, eyes glowing, mouth wide. Tae-sung's heart pounded as more shadows appeared. More monsters, more glowing eyes. And oh, not like this, he thought, scrambling back. He held up his arm defensively. Get back, get away from me. Panic overtook him. He turned to Yumi. Help me, please. Yumi spun around, but her bag was empty. No more Molotovs. She froze. There was only one option left. She turned to Sangin. Trade me your bottle. He nodded and began fumbling for his lighter, but it wouldn't spark. Click, click, nothing. He cursed under his breath, desperately trying to ignite it. Finally, the flame appeared just in time to illuminate a monstrous face inches away. The siren lunged. Sangin panicked. He dropped everything. The bottle fell to the ground, unlit, rolling away. Tae-sung's eyes widened. You idiot. You were supposed to throw it. He reached for his dagger, but the siren was already mid-strike. Then, a silver flash cut through the air. the monster's body split in two, collapsing beside him in steaming chunks. Tae-sung looked up to see Hansu standing there, his blade drenched in black blood. Still trembling, Tae-sung dropped to the ground, silent. The battle was finally over. Hansu surveyed the scene, sword hanging low. "Stick to the plan," he reminded them calmly. "That's how we survive." He turned to Sang-in. "You okay?" Yumi nodded. "We should gather the runes." Sang-in stayed quiet, still shaken. The fire's glow flickered in his wide eyes. Tae-sung let out a long breath. "Thought I was gonna die." He looked down at his leg. The injury he'd gotten earlier completely healed. "Must have been my new power," he mumbled. Hansu heard him and nodded. "If you raise your stamina stat and rest, you'll regenerate faster." Everyone started gathering the runes left behind. Hansu had already calculated how much each person should get. Tae-sung frowned. "You're seriously splitting it that precisely?" But then he saw something sang in collecting a small pile of runes. A greedy thought entered his mind. "If I just take those, it'd be better for the group, right?" He started walking toward Sang-in, eyes cold. "Sang-in," he said. The younger boy turned. Tae-sung cracked his knuckles. "There's a proud Choi family tradition. No brains, no conscience." Sang-in blinked. "What?" Before he could respond, Tae-sung's hand shot out and grabbed him by the throat. Sang-in gasped, his feet lifting off the ground. Tae-sung's eyes were wild. "You can't even throw a bottle," he sneered. "Do you realize you almost got me killed?" Sang-in's hands clawed at Tae-sung's arms, struggling for air. Yumi turned sharply. "What the hell are you doing? Let him go." Tae-sung snarled but obeyed, throwing Sang-in to the ground. "Pathetic," he muttered. "Next time, don't screw it up." He leaned over Sang-in, eyes blazing. "You better pay attention, kid." He grabbed a handful of his hair, yanking his head back. "You're lucky I didn't snap your neck." Sang-in flinched, his face pale and breath shaky. Yumi stepped in between them. "That's enough." She glared at Tae-sung with disgust, shielding Sang-in with her body. Tae-sung took a step back, smirking bitterly. One day, he thought, I won't need to hold back anymore. In a world where survival depends not just on power, but how you use it. Small decisions can spark massive shifts. And in this brutal trial, what begins as a fight over a few runes quickly turns into a lesson in leadership, loyalty, and who deserves to live. The confrontation flared. The blonde sneered, reminding Sang-jin how he used to know his place. "Now," he said, "the boy should just stay quiet and follow the lead of others. No more messing things up." He moved to take the rune from Sang-jin, but before he could grab it, Hansu calmly flicked a dagger to the ground. The blade clattered, making everyone freeze. Startled, Taeyong turned, asking what the hell was going on. Hansu didn't flinch. His voice cut through the tension. "Those runes don't belong to Taeyong." Trying to justify himself, the bully claimed giving the rune to someone like Sang-jin was useless, saying it was as good as throwing it away. His voice rising with frustration, he snapped that they'd all be better off without the kid. "Am I wrong?" he challenged, but Hansu stayed firm. He said the distribution needed to be fair. No one should trample on another's chance to survive. That should have been obvious. Taeyong huffed and brushed it off as nonsense, but warned Hansu not to regret this later. Then he stepped aside and told Sang-jin to worry about his own fight instead. The boy, hesitating a bit, nodded and retrieved his rune from the ground. From behind, Yumi called out to Hansu. Her voice was gentle but concerned. Wasn't he bothered by the group tension? She admitted the arguing must be weighing on him, especially in a place like this. But Hansu shook his head. He told her it didn't bother him, and he wouldn't criticize someone over something they couldn't control. Relieved by his answer, Yumi asked quietly, "Does that mean you're staying with us till the end?" She said sometimes, when she looked at him, it felt like he might just vanish on them at any moment. But Hansu simply said it was their choice to follow him, not the other way around. They were doing fine, so there was no reason to worry. As they moved forward, Hansu came across a group of fallen mermaids. Their bodies dropped stamina and strength runes. He picked one up, thinking how crucial both were at this stage. His stats were 25 in strength, 24 stamina, 14 dexterity, and 15 senses. Suddenly, a burst of energy pulsed in front of him. A familiar presence appeared, beaming with joy. The demon grinned wide, announcing Hansu had just become the first to break 50 combined strength and stamina. The system chimed the same. Hansu had hit a major milestone, and the demon came to honor it, the little horn being landed in front of him. Recalling how Hansu had raised his hand during the earlier encounter, "Knew I made the right call," it smirked, floating closer. It said they had a soft spot for people who push themselves and then it casually hopped onto Hansu's head. As a reward for his effort. The demon said he'd receive a small gift, the kind given only to the most active players. Curious, Yumi approached cautiously. The demon turned to her with a sly smile. "Wanna know what it is?" Trembling slightly, Yumi asked if this was fair after all. Everyone started with different base stats, but the demon waved her concerns away. No need to be scared at the start. No one laid hands on others. That was the rule. Gliding toward her face, it said they didn't kill travelers just because of bad vibes. Then it leaned close and whispered darkly, "Though there are exceptions. And you might be one." Yumi flinched, but then the demon laughed, saying it was just a joke, floating around her. The demon said she looked better than the rest, still keeping her natural appearance, instead of blending in. That alone made her special. Life, it said, had never been fair to begin with. Turning back to Hansu, it apologized for getting off track. Time to deliver the gift. Hansu already suspected what it was. The demon confirmed he could choose 3 runes as a reward. Snapping its fingers, it made them appear mid-air, pointing to one. It explained that though the runes were consumable, they could heal even a hole in someone's stomach, or purge most poisons. Still, Hansu thought it wouldn't help if someone lost a limb. The others gasped it was a healing rune. Some in the group immediately imagined how that rune could save them if things went wrong. But Hansa asked for something else. Was there a rune that granted immunity to magic? The demon's grin widened. There is. Behind him, some of the group sighed in disappointment. Hansu ignored them, weighing the pros and cons. Healing was useful, but magic resistance was far rarer. Normal resistance only sped recovery, but immunity could prevent damage entirely. He figured he could handle physical damage with experience and tactics. Magic, though that was harder to counter, he picked the magic immunity rune. The system updated his magical immunity stat rose to 13. That was enough for now. With the reward claimed, the demon opened a glowing rift, preparing to leave. Just before disappearing, it looked back and called Hansu a handsome oppa. Everyone froze, shocked. Did it just flirt with him? The realization hit the demon. Was female. Still stunned, the group turned to Hansu. He raised an eyebrow, asking what was wrong. No one knew how to respond, so they awkwardly said, "It's nothing." Later, on the 3rd floor, Yumi had just finished off another mermaid. Breathing heavily, she admitted it was easier than before. As she gathered her rune, she glanced over at Hansu. Something about his movements seemed familiar. Was it poison again? Watching closer, she noticed he had a huge stash of runes, yet his speed hadn't improved. Curious, she approached and asked what was going on. Hansu revealed his wrist. There were strange symbols marked there. He explained it was how he stored runes. Yumi, surprised, reached out as he instructed her to hold out her hands while thinking about the rune she wanted. She asked how he learned this superpower. He replied, half joking. She said she wanted to try it too, but Hansu warned it wouldn't help her. Carrying too many runes just slowed you down, and if she died, she'd drop them all anyway. Then the emo boy stepped in, asking why Hansu was collecting them like that. He explained it wasn't just hoarding, it was for bargaining. Once the rules of this world became clearer, these runes could be traded like money. So he told them to take only one each for now. Taeyong narrowed his eyes, voice full of irritation. He scoffed at Hansu, asking how he could act so superior to the rest of them. Why couldn't he just do things the same way? Hansu turned briefly, thinking to himself that these people still didn't grasp the situation they were in. But they'd understand soon enough, especially once they descended to the next level and were forced to face the truth. He bent down and picked up his dagger, but before they went any further, he knew they needed a full reset. Turning to the group with his hands in his pockets, he raised his voice. Whether they hunted or gathered didn't matter. What mattered now was that everyone listened to him. From this point forward, acting like a real leader, he gave a simple order: hand over your weapons. The request threw them into confusion. Taeyong stepped forward, insulted. Did Hansu think he was a thief? He had his own weapon, but Hansu calmly said it was useless now. The blade was dull, no longer fit for battle. Taeyong clenched his jaw. Furious, he demanded to know how they were supposed to fight if Hansu stripped them of their gear. What exactly do you want us to do? Jung stepped up, offering to hand over his weapon, saying it might be the only way forward. Before he could finish, Taeyong shouted at him to shut up. Turning back to Hansu, he challenged him again. Was he afraid of whatever lay below? Did he think they couldn't handle it? Taeyong barked that he always hated the look in Hansu's eyes, that cold, arrogant gaze. but Hansu didn't react. In truth, he had expected Taeyong to back off. Instead, the man charged headlong into the unknown, clueless about what was coming. Hansu sighed. This was where he'd have to draw the line. He held up 2 fingers and laid out the options. 1. The group could go forward without him while he stayed behind. Or 2. They could step aside and simply watch while he went in alone. After a brief pause, he asked, "So, what's it going to be?" Sang Jin quietly said he'd sit this one out. Yumi also agreed. Based on Hansu's tone, whatever was ahead wasn't just dangerous, it was something else entirely. Taeyong turned to Yumi, trying to sway her. "That's why we have to go together, help each other out." He insisted Hansu just wanted to keep all the rewards for himself, leaving his friends behind. If Sang Jin opted out, fine, but if Yumi bailed too, Taeyong would be in real trouble. Hansu glanced to the side, thinking, "Friend, huh?" That word still stung a little, but in his heart, he was almost glad Seelin hadn't returned with him. If she had, she'd probably be wandering the indigo or purple zones alone by now. He clenched his fists. He couldn't afford to stall. He needed to reach the end no matter what, bringing the conversation to a halt. Hansu told them to think it over once they were down there. If they were capable, he wouldn't have said anything to begin with. Taeyong smirked, claiming Hansu should have said that earlier. In his mind, he figured the quiet guy must know something, and only a fool would ignore a lead like that. Moments later, chaos exploded. All 3 of them were sprinting for their lives. Yumi yelled that she warned them it was too dangerous. Taeyong just cursed. "Whatever, doesn't matter anymore." Rewind. A few minutes. As Hansu stepped onto the next floor, he spotted a terrifying creature ahead, a massive snake, clearly not native to this world. A dimensional beast. The 3 stared in disbelief, then turned and ran like hell. Taeyong glanced back. Is he really going to fight that thing alone? He's nuts. But Hansu didn't back down. He stood in front of the snake, eyes locked with its golden glare. It was easily 10 times his size. As the monster coiled to strike, Hansu ducked behind a broken pillar, raising one hand to cover his ear. Right on cue, the beast let loose a devastating red energy beam, blasting the pillar. Debris flew in all directions, but Hansu had planned for this. His magical resistance absorbed some of the impact. That didn't change the fact that the snake was terrifying. It used magic attacks and had scales thick enough to deflect steel. Still, Hansu had studied its patterns. He knew where it was vulnerable. When the monster turned, he dove toward it with a dagger drawn. His blade found the narrow gap between 2 scales, exactly where it hurt the most. The snake let out a hideous shriek and thrashed violently. Hansu backed off, blade still buried in its hide. The enraged beast slammed its tail against the ground. Hansu rolled away just in time. It loomed over him, looming like a wall of death. Then it unleashed another sound wave that forced him to shield his ears. In the aftermath, he looked up only to see the snake's tail whipping toward him. The impact flung him across the chamber like a rag doll, slamming him into a wall. Crack spidered behind him. Still, he stood bloodied, bruised, and grinned. "Now it's pissed," he muttered. That's when things would start going his way. The snake roared. It was already weakening. Hansu knew this wasn't about brute force. Poison would finish the job. He checked his gear. 5 blades left. Eyes glowing with intent, he sprinted at the monster again. "Let's see how long you last," he whispered. Elsewhere, Yumi suddenly froze, hearing a distant sound echo through the corridor. "They're still far, but I can hear something." Taeyong dismissed it. They had no weapons left and needed to return to the convenience store, but Yumi ignored him. "I have to go check," she said, running toward the sound. Taeyong cursed and chased after her. What is with these people? All 3 ran back the way they'd come. As they reached the lower level, Yumi shouted Hansu's name, but what they saw stopped them in their tracks. The snake had Hansu's arm clenched between its fangs. He was trapped. Yumi screamed. The 3 stood helpless on the stairs. Hansu's arm looked crushed. Blood dripped freely. Thinking fast, he grabbed a blade and jammed it into the snake's open jaw. It hissed in agony, finally letting go. Staggering to his feet, Hansu watched the beast writhe in pain. That hit 3 nerves, he thought. Nice. His arm was a mess, but his stamina was already helping him recover. In this world, evolution had altered some races, giving them regeneration and stronger immune systems. That's why poisons had become such a big deal. Still, despite the risk, the venom worked, and it wouldn't have ended like this without it. The snake collapsed, twitching. It was over. The others approached cautiously. Yumi asked if he was okay. Hansu looked surprised. "You guys are still here?" Yumi nodded. "I was worried." "Your arm," he smiled. smiled faintly. Just a scratch. It's healing. Taeyang stared at the monster's corpse, wide-eyed. He killed that thing by himself. He'd always known Hansu was strong, but this strong. Near the body, Hansu crouched and spotted something pulsing near the head. A shockwave rune. Makes sense, he thought. It's a powerful reward. Still, he couldn't use it. Why? He only had 7 ability slots, and those were precious. He couldn't afford to waste one. Taeyang, watching, joked that he was jealous, but Hansu cut him off. Not using it, Sang Jin stepped forward. Can I use it? That caught everyone off guard. Taeyang barked that the kid wouldn't be able to handle it. If anyone should get it, it was him. The emo boy reminded him he already had one. Taeyang growled, demanding how that made sense. He'd just been cowering earlier. Sang Jin said he could grow stronger. That only made Taeyang angrier. Hansu sighed. I'm going to sell it. Whoever wants it 5 discount now. They both went silent. Taeyang asked if he could pay in installments. Hansu said sure, but only with a guarantor. Later, Hansu asked if they'd made a decision. Yumi stepped up and said she'd buy it. In his mind, Hansu thought she was the safest option. She'd already used a magic rune before and had nothing to hide. Yumi revealed her stats: 1 agility, 3 senses, 7 strength, and 7 stamina runes. Hansu nodded. You get the 5% discount. So, just 6 strength runes. She smiled. You're fair, he replied sternly. Don't get used to freebies. One day, that habit could kill you. There were no handouts here. Everything came at a cost. Nearby, Hansu noticed strange crystals in the walls. When there were snakes, there were usually zoom nearby. Spotting one, he smiled and broke off a chunk. From a distance, the others stared. Is that his superpower again? The emo boy joked it looked like a hole punch and a needle. Yumi squinted though. It was metallic. It looked oddly soft. Hansu walked over to the snake's corpse and pierced its scales again with the tool. The others watched in awe. What was he building now? Taeyang asked aloud if Hansu was about to make more poison. But Hansu said no, this would be something different. Snake scales weren't strong enough on their own for proper weapons. He'd need to get creative. This was tutorial 11 out of 13, and in these final stages, weapon crafting mattered. Monster parts could create powerful gear. Though the needle had a narrow effect radius, it was deadly accurate. It wouldn't cause much bleeding, but if you knew exactly where to strike, it became lethal. Forging a weapon from scraps wasn't ideal, but sometimes survival means making do with what you have. That's what he told himself as he inspected the blade. Its tip was dull, but it was crafted with his own hands, the only choice left in this world. With a quiet grin, he took out a small knife and began sharpening the edge. It wasn't perfect, but it didn't need to be. As he worked, he reminded himself that even the alchemists took time to perfect their tools. For a first stage item, this was as good as it gets. He muttered that this would be enough to break through a monster's defense, at least the kind guarding the second hidden piece. There was no time for refinement. It was all about function. Now, once the edge was ready, he wrapped the handle tightly in cloth. Finally, it felt like a real weapon, something he could trust in battle. Sure, stronger options existed, but not with the limited materials he had on hand. Tae watched, visibly impressed. Walking up, he asked if the weapon was for sale, offering all his runes in exchange. He could tell the effort behind it was immense, and it was clearly better than anything he had, but Kang shook his head. It wasn't that simple. The weapon was tricky to use, and even if he wanted to sell it, he couldn't make another one. Every last piece of material had been used up. Tae clenched his jaw. The hero had used all the group's resources for himself again. Still, he brushed it off. There would be better opportunities ahead. At least, that's what he told himself. They'd arrived at what looked like a final destination. Electricity still flowed, and the subway was unnaturally clean. Strangely, the hero seemed calm now, as if danger was finally behind them. Maybe the fighting was done, and only the rewards remained. The train's 3 front compartments drew attention. Hansu was already heading there, prompting Tae to ask why. Kang simply replied that only one person could board. Tae looked confused. The space seemed big enough. Sang Jin agreed, asking what made Kang so sure it was single occupancy. There weren't any visible restrictions, but Kang didn't flinch. He just said the rules didn't matter here, only the results did. If they wanted to stop him, they were free to try. Tae snapped. Who said Kang got to be the one to leave? Hadn't they gotten here together? Why did he act like he was above the rest? Kang looked at them all, silently calling them fools in his head. It was true, opportunities had to be seized, but they were missing something. He replied that Tay was right. There were no written rules, none that said he had to go first. He slammed the weapon against the ground and pointed it at them. With a smirk, he offered them a choice: step back or resolve it with violence. Either way, he didn't care. If they had complaints, they could take it up with someone else. The threat was clear. The weapon gleamed inches from Tay's neck. The train began moving, doors sliding shut, leaving the three outside to watch helplessly. Tay clenched his fists. Had King really meant what he said? Couldn't they have taken him together? Maybe they'd win and then take his weapon and runes for themselves. He pictured it in his head. Worst case scenario, they lose and apologize. Surely Kang wouldn't kill them over that, right? But something had stopped him. Back in that moment, when Kang looked at him, those eyes, cold and predatory, Tay realized that if he had even flinched, he would have died right there. Even now, he didn't understand how he had frozen up just from a stare. It was terrifying. King wasn't just powerful, he was something else entirely. The girl tried to break the tension, saying they shouldn't have pushed him. He had brought them this far. After all, maybe they were too harsh, but Tay disagreed. That was the exact reason they never got anywhere, always hesitating, always backing down. Power came to those who took it, and he would get stronger no matter what. Meanwhile, inside the moving subway, Kang sat alone, deep in thought. He reviewed everything he'd learned so far. The train would stop at 20 stations. Each one offered a random artifact, but once you moved forward, there was no going back. The layout was intentionally disorienting, meant to mess with your mind. Even reaching the final stop didn't guarantee anything good. He needed to stay sharp. A glance at the station number told him they were already at stop 12. So far, he'd collected 8 weapons, each linked to one of the hidden pieces. Items like Lan's crown, Kay's claws, and Orang's gauntlet. The hidden pieces were definitely worth it. These weapons were leagues above anything else. Lan's crown, for example, boosted his sensory stats and revealed monsters' weak points, but he didn't need that. Kang could already see monster weaknesses without assistance. That made the crown useless for him. At least he had enough weapons. Now, he needed something different, something to boost mobility. If he could move faster in battle, his chances would spike dramatically. Then he spotted something unusual, an artifact from the current stop. It looked like a pack of cigarettes, but not just any cigarettes. His eyes widened. Manic mist. He didn't even know this was one of the available drops. He picked one up cautiously. Putting one in your mouth activated it. Rune stats would begin rising slowly. The longer you smoked, the more your stats improved. And if you finished a cigarette and inhaled the final drag, you'd get a 20% boost to all rune stats for 10 full minutes. Kang grinned, clutching the pack tightly. It was useless outside the tutorial zones, but for now, this was a treasure, a rare hidden gem. Holding it brought back memories. A blonde woman's voice echoed in his head, scolding him for smoking again, saying he looked older when he did. He remembered how she teased that cigarettes didn't suit him, and how he was ruining his face. Both of them wore similar combat outfits in that moment. She always had a way of making it feel personal, but this time would be different, he thought. This time, he would use it for something that mattered. Sometime later, Kang stepped off the subway at the designated stop. He glanced around. His group had already moved on. Alone again, he weighed his next steps. There were still 4 days until the next hidden piece would appear. That meant he had 2 solid days to either focus on hunting monsters and gathering runes, or work on completing some missions. He didn't hesitate. Missions came first, especially ones with the best rewards. He glanced at the pot interface. He had completed a few quests earlier, but hadn't yet checked what he'd earned. For now, he needed to prioritize the ones with quick turnarounds and high value. One particular mission caught his eye. The reward, a sage's stone and a clumsy wizard companion. Completing it would grant a 10-point stat boost across the board and heal otherwise fatal wounds. It was a top tier reward, something extremely rare both inside and after the tutorial. He couldn't pass it up. He traced the origin of the mission in his mind. It had come from a woman named Anvi. A former Death Squad member had volunteered for the Abyss through a prison sentence. From what Kang had gathered, she had always kept close to her trusted allies. But once the chaos began, those allies betrayed her. That betrayal sparked something deep inside. For the next 7 days, she slaughtered everyone in the facility, overwhelmed by rage. After the bloodshed, she tried to end her own life. That's when the mission began. Remembering that story, Kang reconsidered. That quest didn't align with his goal of saving those he could. He decided to skip it. Instead, he scanned for something shorter, something simpler. One mission offered a unique item, the selfish man's food pouch. That one would be first on his list, but before he could begin, he needed to rest. His stamina was running low. First priority, food and sleep. He found an empty diner and stepped inside, wondering if he should eat now or later. Eventually, he decided to eat. Later, after filling up, something strange caught his attention. A hole in the ground, one that he recognized immediately. He smirked. So they're bold enough to try this while the moon is about to rise. He muttered. This was going to be interesting. Meanwhile, in a nearby part of the city, a group of people were packing supplies in a rush. Watching from a distance, a familiar group observed in disbelief. These were the same thieves who had looted everything. A girl grumbled that she hadn't been able to save a single thing during the chaos. How could they steal everything, even her supplies? Me, tense and uncertain, admitted that their group was strong, but there was a problem. Kang hadn't returned yet, so they couldn't make a move without him. Two younger survivors whispered among themselves. It was strange hearing me speak so much. She was usually so quiet. She stared at the abandoned convenience store, wishing she had acted faster. The looters moved quicker than expected. Among them was Sanho, who casually waved at their group. The blonde noticed the gesture and asked if Sanho had just waved. Tae nodded and explained they were clearly trying to provoke them, but it wasn't worth reacting. He urged the others to leave. There were more supplies to find elsewhere. Still, deep down, Tae was fuming. That guy, he was supposed to be doing his job. Why wave like that? Rewinding to a few hours earlier, Tae had approached the thieves directly. He offered them a plan. If they needed food, they should raid the subway. He volunteered to guide them there. Yes, he had betrayed his own group, but his plan wasn't senseless. He'd use King as bait to fight these guys, then ask for help once the threat was gone. Sanho was skeptical. Why trust Tae? What if he was scheming with Kang? But Tae didn't flinch. He grabbed Sanho by the collar, insisting he wasn't planning anything shady. Sanho growled, reminding him how much his brother had helped. But Tae answered with a punch, hard and unexpected, knocking the man flat. With blood trickling from Sanho's nose, Tae told them straight they were all weaklings. He wouldn't need tricks to deal with them. They just better think carefully about the opportunity he was giving them. Back in the present, the group had regathered in an abandoned house. When Kang appeared, Mi called out, visibly relieved. Just seeing him back calmed her nerves. The blonde was nervous, but told himself there was no way they could know about his betrayal. Even if they did, he'd spin a story. It would be fine. Mi quickly updated Kang, explaining that while they were chasing Jisung and Yoongu, the looters had cleaned out the store. Kang nodded, unfazed. Then he asked how much food they had left. Mi said not much. They grabbed whatever they could. At that point, Tae stepped in, suggesting they just take everything back. But he also added it might be hard for Kang to fight them all alone. Kang shrugged and replied that they should eat first. That annoyed the blonde. Slamming the table, he demanded to know if Kang was mocking them. He pointed out that they risked their lives for that food. The least Kang could do was offer something equal in return. He pressed further, insisting Kang say something, make an offer. Mi jumped in, saying the food was meant for the whole group, but the blonde wasn't having it. Why give it away for free? Kang didn't lift a finger to help. If anything, he should pay for it. He added that someone once said charity had no place here. Jisung and Yoongu sat silently watching. The blonde smiled inwardly. If he could turn the group against Kang, maybe he could get rid of him. He was curious to see how far Kang would let things go, but Kang answered calmly he had nothing to give. So, what did they suggest? The blonde didn't believe him. He accused Kang of hiding valuable items from the hidden zone. He should be sharing those with the group, since they'd be traveling together. To ease tension, TD offered a cereal bar and told everyone to stop arguing over nonsense. Who folded his arms, quietly observing. He acknowledged that TD had learned well, but TD wasn't done. He told Kang not to change the topic. Kang stood up. The blonde had been too obvious. Treating Kang like an equal, that wasn't the issue. The truth was, Kang didn't plan to stay. They weren't compatible. Their runes weren't enough to interest him. He began walking away. The blonde called out, asking where he was going. Kang thought back to why he joined them. It was to correct a mistake. He'd done what he came for. A cringeworthy memory of Kangta popped into his head. He shook it off. He wasn't going to say some cheesy line. As he left, he simply told them to stay safe. Jisung and the others looked on nervously. The blonde girl tried to stop the fight. They had come this far together, shouldn't end like this. She invited me to go after Kang, but Tae stopped her. Let him go, he said. There's no point stopping someone who's already decided to leave. As Kang walked farther away, Tae muttered that the guy was arrogant until the end. But if they offered something he wanted, he'd come crawling back. They didn't need him. Turning to me, he asked what she was doing. You're not chasing after that lunatic, are you? But me did just that. She ran after Kang and asked to come with him. Nervous, she waited for his answer. Kang said no, he couldn't take her with him. She nodded in understanding. Then, he added something. The choice was hers. Her face lit up. Just then, TD arrived, reminding her she hadn't taken her runes from Sang-jin yet. In his mind, he thought, I can't let her leave like this. Sang-jin stepped forward and said it was fine. He had decided to join them too. The blonde's eyes widened. He grabbed Sang-jin's shoulder and asked if he was serious. Did he really think his father would let this go? He reminded Sang-jin that he had taken him in when he was nothing. Had he forgotten all of that? Mi looked confused. What would your father even do? She asked. The blonde answered bitterly. They were trapped in this world. How did Sang-jin plan to explain this betrayal? But Sang-jin was done. He said nothing else mattered. He was tired of obeying. As he walked away, the blonde stood frozen. Rage flared in his eyes. Fine, he screamed. Go. The food's yours anyway. But don't think anything will change just because you walk away. His voice echoed into the night. In the end, you'll come crawling back. Later, the trio wandered through the quiet streets. Sang-jin asked if they should have packed more food. Their bags weren't exactly full. Mi agreed. But Kang paused, noticing a jacket hanging nearby. He picked it up and put it on. It wouldn't have made sense to carry more, he said. They stared at him, puzzled. But Kang didn't explain. He liked the new jacket, it fit well. With a confident smile, he said they needed to hurry. There was something important they had to do. Mi felt uneasy. What was Kang planning? He had the strength to crush anything in his path. Was he really thinking straight? Kang seemed to sense her thoughts. He didn't blame her. She had no idea what it meant when the moon started to change. Then, without warning, he looked up and said, "It's almost midnight." Mi followed his gaze. What does that mean? And then, she saw it. She pointed toward the sky, stunned. Is something wrong with the moon? At first glance, the moon looked normal, but then they saw it, an eerie, bloodshot eye staring back at them from within the moon's surface. Hovering in the night sky, the moon took on a twisted form, its center splitting open to reveal an enormous, alien eye. Staring at the grotesque sight, the girl gasped in disbelief. Did the moon just open its eye? Beside her, Sang-jin paled. Something was wrong. His hand trembled as he looked at his rations, which had just crumbled into sand. There was no explanation. Their food was vanishing. Frantic, the girl tore open her backpack. One by one, she checked their supplies. Every last bit had turned into powder. She stared in horror at the dust now coating her hands. Unease rippled through the group as the emo spotted something strange, a glowing shimmer around people. Realizing what it meant, he whispered that everyone's hiding spots were being revealed. Under the moon's light, alarmed, the girl asked if they were glowing too. The emo speculated that while they couldn't see who was close, people were now visible in through walls. It was as if privacy had been erased. A sudden understanding struck them. This phenomenon would trigger chaos. Everyone could now locate each other. The system was pushing humans into confrontation. Sang-jin turned to Kang and asked if he knew this would happen. But Kang, smiling, said not even superpowers could predict everything. Still, the emo thought his calm response was far too composed. All around them, chaos erupted. Survivors screamed at one another, blaming each other for food theft, threatening violence, and accusing others of hoarding supplies. Some demanded that others hand over whatever was left, ready to kill for a morsel. It was desperation in its purest form, and Kang silently acknowledged that this world was rotten to the core. He finally explained why he warned them not to be greedy. The moon in this world wasn't normal, and as long as it loomed overhead, all food would dissolve into sand. It was a brutal, invisible punishment. Without waiting for a reply, Kang began walking. The emo asked where he was going. Kang simply answered, to do what needs to be done. Elsewhere, another group stood frozen in disbelief. Their supplies, every single item, had also vanished into dust. The blonde girl clutched her bag, asking what they were supposed to do now. Should they try to scavenge elsewhere? Her partner shook his head. They had already stripped the store clean. There was nothing left. The blonde narrowed her eyes. Was this Kang's doing? coming? Did he know this would happen all along? Frustrated, he questioned whether Kang had lured them into this, knowing they'd lose everything. His thoughts were interrupted by the blonde girl yelling his name, telling him to look outside. In the center of the plaza, glowing bodies stood out in the dark. It was the gang, the same bullies who'd threatened them before. And Sanho, furious, realized he'd been tricked by Tae. He began scanning the area, searching for the traitor. Through the window, the blonde muttered that they didn't stand a chance against that group, not like this. Suddenly, the girl turned to the others, insisting to follow Kang. Her tone was urgent. Getting close to the blonde, she asked if they were really just going to sit here and do nothing. Shouting, she argued that inaction would lead to their downfall. If they couldn't find the others, then the best move was to find Kang and offer their help. Her companion hesitated, but eventually agreed. Maybe they could reconcile. Even a temporary alliance was better than being alone and starving. Tae reluctantly nodded. If this worked, he could get closer to Kang again. He told them to keep quiet and stick behind him. They exited carefully, but as Tae moved forward, something snared his leg. In an instant, he hit the ground hard. He reached down to pull it off. Some kind of strange substance was sticking to him. Helpless, he shouted for help as a figure emerged from the shadows. "Think, he'll be all right," one of the men muttered. But they didn't wait. Grabbing the struggling Tae, they began dragging him away. The gang leader called him over, saying they needed a friendly chat. Tae's eyes widened in panic as they dragged him closer. But just as quickly, the two group members bolted, abandoning him without hesitation. The leader crouched beside Tae and chuckled. "Still a bit too young to run your mouth like that," he explained the trap Orin's flight paper. While Tae was plotting his schemes, they were already planning their ambush. Standing tall, the leader demanded to know why only 3 of them had shown up. "Where are the rest of your little friends?" he asked with a mocking grin. Raising his foot, he slammed it down not on Tae, but beside him. The raw power split the ground beneath them. Tae shivered in terror, desperate to survive. He promised to talk. He knew where the others had gone. The bald man smirked. "You catch on fast, but someone else wants a word with you first." As the leader stepped aside, Sangho approached, fury written across his face. "I'm not done until I get my payback." Tae couldn't believe what was happening. Maybe things would have been different if they hadn't abandoned him. Maybe not. But the look in Sangho's eyes was clear. With a sinister smile, Sangho told the others to be gentle with him as much as possible. The rest of the gang took that as their cue and began ruthlessly beating Tae down. Curled on the ground, Tae screamed in pain, wondering how it had come to this. "I'll kill them. I'll kill those 2, he swore through broken teeth. Elsewhere, 2 others were baffled by what they saw. A pot sat over a flame, a meal simmering inside. How were these 3 acting like it was a camping trip? The girl scolded herself for not realizing their food would vanish too. Approaching carefully, she greeted them and said they'd arrived just in time. "Let's eat together," she offered. Kang stood slowly, eyes focused. Without a word, he slammed his weapon into the earth, leaving a deep dent between them. The girl flinched. Mid-bite, Kang warned her, "Don't cross that line." Annoyed, she asked why he was acting so childish. "It's Tae's fault, not mine," she added. "And what if I do cross it?" Kang smirked. "Then, based on my power, it won't end well for either of you." The quiet boy finally spoke, saying the power Kang had was speaking volumes. Kang responded that right now, things would get dangerous with them nearby. Before they could react, they realized they were no longer alone. The bald man's gang had arrived. Their leader stood watching calmly as Kang and the girl stood their ground. Kang narrowed his eyes. Mi tensed up, and sure of what Kang was going to do. She braced herself, expecting violence. The mission currently in progress was called the Selfish Glutton's Meal. The conditions were deceptively simple. Cook and consume as much food as possible while the moon glows above. But there was a hidden catch. The one attempting the mission must be selfish, absolutely unwilling to share. Only by eating everything alone, while others scramble for survival, could the reward be obtained. Even in the face of this absurd setup, the hero remained calm. While others fought or begged for scraps, he devoured his meal with complete focus. Suddenly, Tae limped into the scene, bruised and bloody. The blonde girl rushed to him in alarm, asking if he was okay. But Tae lashed out at her, accusing her of abandoning him. She insisted they only ran to get help, but he wasn't buying it. If she had stayed, things might have gone differently. Someone from behind placed a firm hand on his shoulder, telling him to calm down. The man stepped forward and, impressed by Kang's composure, asked him where he found the meat. Kang tilted his head. "It's meat," he said simply. "It's everywhere. Don't tell me you don't know what meat is." The group recoiled in disgust. Were they really eating that? Kang, however, showed no hesitation. He'd already tested it. Those who consumed the raw meat suffered from dehydration, it was toxic. But he had discovered the trick, boiling it in. Goblin blood neutralized its effects. The bald gang leader looked impressed. He murmured to himself that Tay wasn't wrong. Kang had some kind of power, and that power had led him to this rare item. Maybe this was the right time to take him down. Tay admitted Kang was strong, but still, he was just a kid, only 20 years old. He had fought monsters, sure, but fighting people? That was something else. The bald man barked at the rookie to stop gawking and go join his friend. Hesitant, the blonde grumbled, why should he act friendly toward that manipulative guy? Still, he agreed not to stir up trouble in front of the crowd. But before anything else happened, Kang stood. His presence shifted the atmosphere. Tay saw his chance. Why don't we talk for a moment? He said, trying to sound calm. The girl shouted for him not to step closer, her voice cracking. Approaching anyway, Tay smirked. She's just like the last one, he muttered. Kang's grip tightened on his weapon. I guess this is how it has to go, he said coldly, and then slashed toward Tay's ankle. In a blink, Tay was down, lying on the ground. He didn't even understand what had happened. But then, the pain hit. Screaming in agony, he realized his leg was gone. He shouted, eyes wide with horror, asking King how he could do this. You're insane, he roared. The others looked on in shock. Me tried to make sense of it, while Tay continued yelling, overcome with rage. The emo, trembling, would that they had to think this through. Kang would only become stronger, and soon, they wouldn't be able to stop him. He'd kill them and take their runes. We need to take him down now, he shouted, or it'll be too late. The bald man nodded. This was the time. If they didn't act now, they never would. Sang-ho agreed. They had numbers and weapons, and under the glow of the moon, Kang couldn't hide. Now was their chance. But something about Kang unsettled him. How could a college student have that kind of look in his eyes? What kind of life had this kid lived? Across from them, Kang stood unfazed. His eyes, cold and sharp, burned with focus. He recalled how Ares and Keelan used to argue, even after joining forces. Ares warned him not to make enemies recklessly, but Keelan believed any enemy not crushed would return stronger. Kang smirked. He agreed with both. Lifting his hand, he revealed 3 glowing runes. If they were going to fight, they wouldn't leave a single strand of hair behind. With that, the gang charged, screaming to bring him down. Kang clenched his fist, gathering power. The ground shattered beneath him as he launched forward like a missile. He'd use this chance to test the rewards. Full potential. Sang-ho barely saw him move. Kang appeared mid-air and struck the first thug with such force. The man was sent flying. Without pausing, he shifted position again, each movement like lightning, defeating enemy after enemy in mere seconds. The bald leader watched in disbelief. Was Kang absorbing all the runes they carry? He tried to rally his men, shouting not to run, but suddenly, Kang was in front of him. The bald man stood firm, claiming he wouldn't surrender. Kang warned him to think twice. Do you really think you can live with killing someone? The man asked. This is murder. You're not ready for that. Kang ignored him and stepped closer. The man backed up, but Kang gave him no room. Swinging his weapon, he landed a clean strike. The gang leader collapsed. Kang loomed over him, his gaze frozen like ice. Around them, the rest of the thugs lay defeated, groaning, broken, and beaten. The blonde girl and her partner stared in terror. Kang turned toward them, his weapon still lodged in someone's body. If you're still standing here, does that mean you want to fight too? He asked calmly. They exchanged a look and fled without a word. Kang returned to the campfire like nothing had happened. Chewing another bite of meat, he casually asked if anything had gone on while he was away. Emi stammered. No, nothing. The 3 of them sat quietly near the unconscious bodies scattered across the field. By morning, the sky began to brighten, but the moon, with its ghastly eye, still hung above them. Then, slowly, the eye closed shut. Kang glanced up. He had eaten enough to last for nearly 3 days. He hadn't completed any people-based missions, but this reward made up for it. The item preserved food, shielding it from the moonlight's effects. It even created a subspace to store items usable 5 times, enough for 2 weeks of supplies. They walked in silence. Then Mi broke it, asking if he had spared the gang on purpose. Kang sighed. You're scary, you know that? He said without looking at her. She huffed, saying she was just concerned. The truth was, none of the men had stood a chance. Mi understood that. Kang could have killed them all, but he didn't need to. Watching her, Kang realized Mi had truly adapted to this world. If his goal were just power, he could have done the same. But his reason for coming back was different. He wasn't here to dominate, he was here to save people. And that meant minimizing bloodshed and forming alliances. Do that. that, one rule had to be established: no killing other humans for their runes. Kang could have taken their runes by force, but doing that would have made him no different from the rest. If he wanted to lead, his rules had to be firm and come from strength. It wouldn't be easy, especially now. But if enforced by someone powerful, it could change everything. Still, he knew many were watching, waiting. That didn't matter. Someone would always stumble across runes eventually. Sang Jin stopped walking. "I'm done," he said. Dotami turned to him, surprised. "What do you mean?" He admitted he couldn't keep going, not with Kang. Kang simply nodded. "Do what you want." Turning around, Sang Jin walked away. Kang asked me if she was afraid of him. She hesitated, eyes dropping. She was, but she couldn't bring herself to admit it out loud. Instead, she whispered that if she left now, she probably couldn't return. "I'll stay. As long as I can," she said quietly. Kang studied her face. She was anxious, but firm. He smiled faintly. "Then let's move." Sometime later, the two descended into an underground tunnel. Back in the ruined city, Tae lay sprawled across broken pavement. Cursing his men, he called them useless dogs. He gritted his teeth. "Kang Hansu made a mistake. I'm already healing, and once I recover, I'll kill them all." Dragging himself forward, he muttered about how they abandoned him, especially me. Then he saw someone approaching. It was Sang Jin. Tae's eyes lit up. "Hey, help me up," he called out. Sang Jin looked down coldly. "You talking to me?" Annoyed, Tae snapped. "Who else would I be talking to?" He said they should work together. It was a chance for both of them to get stronger. Behind them, the bald men groaned. Tae sneered. "Let's kill him first." Sang Jin walked over silently, picked up a knife, and approached. "You did good," Tae said. "We'll split the runes." But Sang Jin grabbed him by the collar. "What are you doing?" Tae asked, alarmed, and then Sang Jin stabbed him. Tae screamed, blood pouring down his side. You dared." Sang Jin stared down with fury. "You always told me to know my place. Now, you know yours. You're nothing when you're alone." Tae's words dissolved into curses. Sang Jin didn't flinch. A terrifying laugh escaped his lips as he dropped the knife and vomited from the adrenaline. Wiping his mouth, he punched himself. "Don't get weak now," he muttered. Looking at Tae's rune, he knew it wasn't meant for him. He turned toward the bald man. The man begged for his life, promising they could work together, become stronger. But Sang Jin kept walking. He now understood why Kang had left him behind. He wasn't strong enough to follow. All he ever wanted was the courage to stand beside Kang, not to be protected but to fight with him. Holding two runes in his hand, he vowed to change. No more shrinking away, no more weakness. He would get stronger even if he had to use these fools as stepping stones. Elsewhere, black birds circled the sky. One dove toward me. She took a deep breath and screamed. A piercing wave of sound sent the flock crashing to the ground. Then came something bigger, a massive bird. But before it could strike, Kang sliced it cleanly with his blade. Panting, he said she needed his help again. He handed her a piece of the bird. "There's a difference between being independent and doing everything alone," he said calmly. He reminded her, when a power has weaknesses, the best thing to do is ask for help. That's what teamwork is for. Checking her stats, she saw that it was now the third day. She was relieved. The abilities she'd bought from Kang magic and stamina upgrades were paying off, but she knew she still depended on him too much. She clenched her fists, frustrated. Kang, meanwhile, checked his stats. Stamina at 42. He always aimed to keep everything balanced. Luckily, finding what he needed had been easy. Mi still had gaps in both strength and stamina, so he filled those for her. Suddenly, a system message popped up. All participants return to the starting point. Those who are late will be punished. Eyes wide, Mi looked up, hovering above. Then was a tiny glowing figure. It was a fairy. Her wings flickered like stardust, and her presence seemed to distort the space around her. From behind, Kang called out to me, telling her to follow. Sometime later, the two of them walked in silence. She kept stealing glances at him, unable to stop watching his expression. Noticing her gaze, Kang gently asked if something was on her mind. He added there was no need to feel nervous around him. Blushing, she stammered that everything was fine. Her voice trembled as she awkwardly asked, "Are you dating anyone?" The question surprised even her. Inwardly, she panicked. Was that too personal? She scolded herself, telling her heart not to fall for him. He was too kind, too reliable, and she couldn't afford to lose someone like him. Despite her internal battle, she still wanted to ask more, something deeper, but the words wouldn't come out. Kang glanced at her with mild amusement. She was overly reserved, but oddly open with her feelings. He thought about how someone like Kangta would have enjoyed a question like that, even if it was just harmless chatter. He remembered how Mei had trembled the first time they met, barely able to speak. He thought of someone precious, someone he hadn't met yet in this version of the world, and he couldn't bear the idea of losing her again. So, when she asked, he simply answered, "I don't remember." The vague reply made her even more flustered. She didn't press further. Instead, they both walked quietly, the silence stretching between them. Eventually, they arrived at a strange gathering. A large crowd of survivors stood before a massive structure. Kang noted that many faces were familiar, yet the atmosphere felt strangely off. Then, as if summoned, the little demon appeared out of thin air and asked if all the travelers were finally present. With a disappointed sigh, it said they had gathered too fast, wasting no time. The demon announced it had 2 pieces of good news to share. Grinning wickedly, it leaned forward, ready to entertain. The first bit of news: if they survived for just 3 more days, it would leave them alone forever. "Isn't that fantastic?" it said with a twisted laugh. "Let's celebrate." The crowd remained completely silent. Its grin faltered. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongues?" it asked. Eventually, someone clapped half-heartedly, and the rest followed, clapping in fear rather than joy. "Much better." The demon giggled. Then it raised a finger. "Now, allow me to introduce the true star of today's event." It pointed to a large, ancient building, the palace-like structure behind it. "This will be the center of everything. We call it the magic altar." The girl looked up at it with confusion. "The magic altar?" she murmured. The demon nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, and inside is a special little creature. Very cute, very hungry." With arms wide open, the demon continued its theatrical announcement. "This, dear travelers, is a carnivorous beast. And poor thing, we haven't fed it in a whole day." Gasps echoed across the crowd. The demon giggled again, saying the creature couldn't wait to come out and play. It explained that, although the altar looked sturdy, it would break if they weren't careful. Everyone started whispering, what if the beast escaped? The demon cackled. "Relax. That's where the second piece of good news comes in." Lounging on a plush pillow, it added, "There's actually a way to keep the beast asleep." It paused dramatically, then asked, "Anyone want to guess how?" No one answered. With mock disappointment, the demon sighed. "You people are boring. Fine, tell you." Its tone shifted colder now. "The method is simple. 5 sacrifices every day." The crowd gasped again, louder this time. "You just need to feed it 5 people per day. Easy, right?" The demon said cheerfully. "Only 3 days left, so just 15 in total. Then 60 of you can walk away. Not bad odds." The little monster grinned, saying it was a take it or leave it situation. To drive the point home, a projection appeared in the air, a hologram showing another tutorial zone. There, people ran in panic as a giant beast tore through them mercilessly. The demon smiled as it explained these were real-time images from a different region. In that zone, people had refused the deal and paid the price. Cries of panic spread through the crowd. "We're dead," someone muttered. "There's no way to beat that thing." Then, trembling voice rose above the rest. How do we decide who to sacrifice?" The demon shrugged. "How should I know?" it said mockingly. "Rock, paper, scissors? A fist fight? It's not my problem. I just need 5 of you per day." Then it pointed to a countdown timer above the altar. 1 hour left to decide, it said. "Once the time's up, you'll be safe for 1 day. Then the process repeats." The moment the demon vanished, panic erupted. People screamed, cried, and begged. Desperation turned to chaos. He looked at Kang's pleading. "What do we do now?" Kang closed his eyes. "The damage is already done," he said quietly. Just then, one man stepped forward, trying to restore order. He proposed a solution: drawing lots, randomly selecting 5 people each day to keep it fair. At first, people seemed to consider it, until another voice interrupted. From the back of the group, someone questioned, "Why should we be fair?" Everyone turned. Mi's eyes widened in disbelief. It was Sang Jin, flanked by the 2 from earlier. Someone asked what he meant, and Sang Jin repeated his question, "Why should we be fair?" The first man argued, saying they had no better plan. But Sang Jin calmly walked up to a wooden post, rested his hand on it, and shattered it in a single blow. Gasps filled the air. His point had been made. "We start by removing the weak," he said. 5 of the most useless. That's the plan. Shocked murmurs spread as he stood confidently. For someone with only one ability, the crowd was hanging on his every word. With a wicked smile, Sang Jin said they couldn't hesitate. Over 100 people had already died in other zones. It was time to act. He reminded them that once they left here, they might have to fight side by side. If that was the case, they didn't need dead weight. Looking back at the man who first suggested drawing lots, he said coldly, "Why not start with someone like you?" With icy eyes, he argued that sacrificing the weak made the most sense. Then, he turned to Kang. "What do you think?" As Sang Jin posed the question, his thoughts drifted inward. He wasn't the same coward from before. He had changed, and he wondered if Kang could see it too. He didn't want to challenge Kang. In fact, he wanted to support him. Even in this nightmare, he believed it was possible to start over. But to do that, he needed Kang's cooperation. In his mind, Sang Jin was sure Kang would back the idea. After all, it was practical. But Kang responded with something unexpected. "That's one way," Kang said, "but I've got another." Everyone turned to him, stunned. Even Sang Jin froze. He hadn't expected that. Kang continued, explaining that his method wouldn't require sacrificing anyone. It left the crowd whispering, and sure if he was joking. Sang Jin's heart raced. What kind of plan could that be? The man in the red beanie stepped forward, saying it was impossible. "You think we can fight that thing together?" he asked. "Even with numbers, we're no match. It regenerates as it eats." But Kang remained calm. "Who said we have to fight together?" Confused murmurs spread through the group. One man stepped forward, asking if Kang planned to fight it alone. Kang gave a slight nod. "Yes, that's exactly what I'm going to do." Outrage erupted. Some people scoffed. Others shouted that he was being reckless. No one believed one person could take on a monster like that. A voice from the back pointed to the countdown timer. "We've got less than an hour left. If we don't figure something out, we're done." Sang Jin stayed quiet, thinking. He had believed he was close to catching up to Kang, but now, seeing him face this monster alone, he realized just how far behind he still was. To his surprise, Kang admitted the task wouldn't be easy. That small statement gave Sang Jin hope. Excitedly, he asked if Kang was asking for help. Maybe they could join forces? But Kang just sighed. "Let me finish talking." That blunt rejection stung. Sang Jin was left speechless. Then Kang laid out his proposal. If his strength and stamina could be raised by 30 points each, he'd be able to defeat the creature on his own. He told the group that if they gave him their runes, he'd take full responsibility. No one would need to be sacrificed. People started whispering again. "Only the sacrifices give up their runes?" one asked. "So, 60 runes in total?" In his mind, Kang did the math. If he could get his strength and stamina to 100, agility and perception to 50, and use a manic mist cigarette during the fight, he'd be ready. He had lived in this world once before. He remembered how it worked, and this time, he would claim something no one else had. The second hidden item when even eras, Seelan and Kangta couldn't obtain. The only one who had come close was the monarch of Clementine's wrath, and even he had nearly died trying. This prize was only for those who became strong enough. Kang told them it didn't matter who gave the runes. Once he reached the required levels, he would enter the altar immediately. He urged them not to waste time. Every second counted. The bald man scoffed, saying weaklings would never have enough runes. If they did, he added, they'd already be stronger. Irritated, he demanded the runes and suggested they hold a vote if people couldn't decide. Someone snapped back, calling him selfish. That got his attention. He turned angry. "What did you say?" A muscular man with long hair stepped forward. "If we're voting based on weakness, you'd be the first one fed to the beast." He explained that the rune gap between the top and bottom ranks was massive. There was no reason they should give up their runes for someone like the bald man. The long-haired man grinned. "You're clearly just trying to escape." The bald man clenched his fists. "Who do you think you are?" The other man stepped closer. "Keep talking, and I'll break your bones." The bald man backed off, asking if strength was all that mattered. "Don't you respect your elders?" But the muscular man just shrugged. "We'll vote then." He gave the bald man a choice: hand over his runes and live another day, or offer himself as a sacrifice. A secret vote would decide. Turning to Kang, the bald man nervously said he could take the muscular guy's runes by force if he wanted, maybe even take out some of the others. But before he finished, someone punched him in the face. It was the red beanie man. "You trying to die, old man?" The bald man groaned, saying he had a family and didn't want to die. Someone else shouted they should throw him in first. If the beast wasn't satisfied, they'd all die anyway. Kang watched the chaos unfold. They were always the same, never learning, never backing down until it was too late. He sighed, then stepped forward and raised his hand. Silence followed. He told them they had 5 total options. Holding out a piece of paper, he showed a ranking of the weakest people present. Gasps echoed. Someone yelled it was impossible. Others screamed in anger. You suggesting we sacrifice ourselves? Someone shouted. Kang didn't respond. He just smiled, confident, unbothered. Time ticked down. Now only 30 minutes remained. Near the altar, Mi stood alone, staring at it with unease. Then Sang Jin appeared beside her. If you're going to just stand here, why not come with me? He said. He added that maybe Kang would let her tag along too. Blushing, she asked if he even understood how Kang operated. That irritated Sang Jin. Mi admitted she wanted to go with Kang, but she couldn't follow blindly. That moment made Sang Jin realize something, he'd always be left behind. She wasn't waiting for him, oh, she said gently. Kang would be mad if I did. I'd just be like the others who depend on him. Around them, panic still spread. Kang scolded the others, asking what they were doing while everyone else was working. He didn't care if they'd been resting, they were behind now, and they'd face the consequences. They weren't abandoned because they were weak. They were weak because they hadn't caught up. If you want to live, he said, each of you owes me 2 runes. He turned to me. This is all I can offer. You can repay the rest after 3 days of hunting. He held out his hand. Let's make it right. Back in the present, Mi said quietly. Kang always keeps his word. He'll do it. That's why I have to hurry. She wondered if she could still catch up. Sang Jin offered for her to stay with him and the others. They'd be happy to have you. She smiled. Maybe later, she said. It's not the right time yet. She turned and walked away. Sang Jin watched her go, realizing he didn't need to see her fight to know she was stronger than before. Trembling with frustration, he told himself he had to prove something too. He wasn't there yet, not even close. Suddenly, a loud voice called out to him. It was the muscular man. We need to talk. Sang Jin raised an eyebrow. What do you want? One of the man's subordinates said. Sang Jin looked tense. The man introduced himself as Park Sul. Pointing behind him, Park asked if Sang Jin was the leader of his group. If so, let's have a leader-to-leader chat. Sang Jin dismissed the label. We're just friends. They follow because they want to. Park grinned. That's what makes you a real leader. He added that it was impressive how strong Sang Jin had become. Then, curious, he asked about Kang. I heard you know him well, Park said. Mind answering a few things? Sang Jin hesitated, then nodded slowly. Meanwhile, inside the altar, Kang examined the toxins he'd gathered. Goblin venom wouldn't work. He needed paralysis venom instead. He used wind cat beads, restoring a small portion of his stamina. He would need every bit for what was coming. Descending the stairs, he reviewed his stats. Not bad, but still not enough. This enemy wasn't ordinary. Pulling out a wooden box, he prepared several manic mist cigarettes. He placed one between his lips, inhaling deeply. It had been a while since he'd done this. He just hoped it would be worth it. With the 60 runes already collected and this power-up, he was approaching a new threshold, a rune that belonged to this cruel world. As his attributes climbed, his runes began to change color. When rune stats passed 100, their hues blended, shifting from dull gray to red, then orange, and finally, brilliant yellow. The shift had begun. Even though it started small, just a fraction of a percentage, the transformation was real and powerful. This monster wasn't meant to appear in the first tutorial, but Kang knew that with the colorless rune, he could still win. He gripped his weapon. The essence of a troll would be enough to tear this creature apart. He charged forward, determined. So far, only one person had ever obtained this hidden item. Kang would be the second, and he knew impossible things held the greatest rewards. Leaping high, he descended with a mighty strike. Just then, others began entering through the portal behind him. Park and a few leaders rushed into the altar. Come on, Sang Jin, Park shouted. Hurry! Sang Jin followed close behind. Park smiled and said they should gather the others too. Sang Jin agreed and told them to move fast. Kang needed them. In this world, certain races were born with innate abilities. Carnivorous beasts were among them. As the monster lunged at Kang, he recognized its first racial trait, pure, unfiltered fear. Its massive claw swung forward, ready to tear him apart. He ducked just in time, the beast's claw slashing past his head, missing by inches. Sliding backward across the ground, Hansu caught his breath, eyes locked on the monster. This thing wasn't just strong, it fed on fear. Literally. Hansu could feel its energy pulsing every time he tensed. That's when it clicked. The creature's power wasn't endless. It absorbed fear like fuel. When it consumed terrified prey, its stamina shot up like a surge. Sweat dripped down Hansu's temple, not from exhaustion, but revelation. There was a pattern here, and patterns could be exploited. If it regained enough energy, it would surely head toward the blood-draining swamp, an area known for draining victims dry in seconds. A fatal recovery point. But his thoughts were cut short. The beast charged again, slamming the altar floor, the whole chamber shaking with its rage. Hansu's gaze sharpened. Brute strength wasn't going to win this. His needle-thin blade couldn't pierce its hide properly. He needed a new plan, one focused on precision, not power. Control the beast. Limit its movement. That was the key. The monster roared and lunged. Hansu barely sidestepped, heart racing. He couldn't miss the next opportunity. He had to strike the nerves. One specific point, the median nerve, could cripple it long enough for the venom to spread. With a sudden burst of speed, Hansu closed in. His blade gleamed as he thrust forward, aiming directly at the nerve cluster beneath its thick skin. A sickening crunch echoed through the room. The monster let out a guttural, bone-rattling roar, staggering back. That hit home, Hansu muttered, with a tight smile. Now we wait. He stepped back, blade lowered. Just 12 minutes left on the clock. If the venom worked, the beast would be paralyzed before then. But the creature wasn't going down easy. It retaliated with the cascade of magical energy slashes, its blade arm spinning in a deadly arc. Hansu deflected what he could and retreated once again, his face calm, eerily so. The beast glared, muscles trembling with fury, but Hansu didn't flinch. He lit his cigarette and took a slow drag, eyes never leaving the monster. This was no ordinary fight. He could sense that this was fear magic at work, a pure fear-based skill, the kind that tested not just muscles, but mental strength. Fear twisted the rules here. It bypassed logic and forced emotion to the forefront. And if your mind cracked, so did your body. But compared to what Hansu had faced in higher zones, this beast was child's play. Even with its tricks, it was still just a step above tutorial level. He smirked. You're scary. Yeah, but I've seen worse. His instincts had been honed through blood, betrayal, and survival. Combat had shaped him into a living weapon. Years ago, a comrade once said combat was just a matter of prediction. Back then, Hansu laughed at the idea, but not anymore. How he saw it. Every twitch of muscle, every breath the beast took, it all telegraphed its next move. And because of that, he could dodge. Not by luck, but by knowing. Still, even with this predictive edge, it wasn't easy. If his stamina and strength hadn't been upgraded earlier, he'd already be dead. He was glad he lured the beast into the altar. This enclosed space gave him just enough advantage. Every second counted. Up on the ridge, another group watched in stunned silence. They'd underestimated him. Is he really doing all that alone? The long-haired man whispered. His leader chuckled, arms crossed. Relaxed, isn't he? Doesn't even look like he's trying. Sang Jin watched, whispering to himself. He didn't even need runes. His leader nodded. Those runes? He probably stole them anyway. Doesn't matter. Stick to the plan, the group agreed. Their strategy was simple. Observe from a distance. Descend silently when the time was right. But then Sang Jin shouted without warning, Kang, we're here to help. Hansu's eyes flicked upward, startled. Not at the voice, but at the timing. Just hold on. Jin shouted again. Down below, Hansu's calm expression faltered. Behind him, Park ran up and grabbed Jin by the shoulder. What are you doing? We said stay quiet. He had to know we were here, Jin defended. He's not alone anymore. Park looked horrified. You're going to get us all killed. What if another monster hears that? He paused, then muttered, idiot. Jin only smiled sheepishly. Sorry. Back at ground level, Hansu glanced back with mixed emotions. That kid, he really had changed. One of the observing men clicked his tongue. That idiot might have ruined everything. His leader waved it off. Doesn't matter. After this, we'll take care of both of them. But deep down, the man wasn't so sure. Watching Hansu fight had shifted something inside him. This wasn't just a skilled human. Kang Hansu was a monster, a predator who had already eaten his fill and was simply resting. He remembered the earlier fights, how Hansu faced dozens alone without hesitation. It was terrifying. and awe-inspiring. Worse yet, it looked like Hansu enjoyed it. He moved with a calm brutality no sane person should have. No, he can't be allowed to survive, the man whispered to himself. He's too dangerous. Once Hansu and the others were out of the way, they could finally take control of Mei's group. Breaking the silence, the man ordered, "You, go down there. Check the situation. Make sure that monster's dead." The beast twitched again. Its movements slower now, but it wasn't finished. From afar, Jun observed the group's chatter. A smirk crept across his lips. Something about him made the long-haired man uneasy. Why'd he go quiet? Just then, the ground trembled violently. Screams followed. Above us, an explosion rocked the stairwell. Dust and debris filled the air as the entire structure began to collapse. Everything's falling apart. Someone shouted. Panic broke loose. The group lost their footing, sliding and stumbling across the unstable ground. One man gasped. How did this even happen? They were under attack, or worse, sabotaged. But it was too late to figure out why. The beast turned its head. Now, it stood directly in front of the confused, terrified group. Its glare held no fear, only hatred. The pressure on the first floor was suffocating now, far heavier than anything above. Everyone froze in place. Even Park, who'd always tried to act brave, was visibly shaking. Maybe a sneak attack. He whispered. Wait, where's Hansu? As if answering, Hansu stepped into view. Calm, silent. The long-haired man narrowed his eyes. What's he doing? The group's leader stared. He's not going to help us, is he? He hoped Hansu would at least finish it off with them. With teamwork, they had a chance. But then Hansu did something unexpected. He bit into his cigarette and spoke through clenched teeth. I was going to help. He paused, eyes cold. But you ruined it. The group stared, stunned. Hansu continued. Because of your interference, it's going to recover all its strength. They looked confused, scared. He didn't care. He glanced down at the venom in his hand. If the beast ate this group, it'd vanish again, and he'd lose the chance to finish it. I'll try again later, he muttered, and turned to leave. Are you serious? Someone shouted after him. Is he running away? The long-haired man said in disbelief. No, someone else growled. He forgot his friend. Let's use the emo as bait. Where is he anyway? A voice echoed from above. Looking for me? Sang Jin stepped out, smiling like a devil. Thought I fell with the others? The man's face turned pale. Realization hit Jin had done this on purpose. You blew the stairs? You catch on fast, Jin teased. I'll kill you. Go ahead, Jin said calmly. But you might want to worry about that thing instead. He pointed down. The beast had started salivating again. The beast stood motionless, saliva dripping from its mouth, pupils dilated with hunger. It could taste the panic in the air. That alone fed its strength. Everyone froze. Jin glanced at the men below and then at the creature, its breathing growing heavier with anticipation. One of the men realized the truth. This monster wasn't just watching them. It was enjoying this, watching them squirm. We're running out of time, someone gasped. If it finishes recovering, Hansu won't stand a chance. Fear erupted into desperation. The leader shouted, if that guy abandons us now, it'll be the end for all of us. We need to join forces. But then, Hansu's voice cut through their panic. Cold, sharp, final. Why are you so afraid? He asked. Didn't you come here knowing someone had to die? Confusion rippled through the group. What the hell are you talking about? Then realization dawned. They remembered the words of the little demon. The system required 5 human sacrifices a day to feed the monster. It didn't matter who. As long as 5 were offered, the monster's jaws opened wide. Its rancid breath flooded the room. Too late. With one sweeping lunge, the beast devoured the entire group. Screams cut short, bodies torn apart, silence following. From a distance, Hansu exhaled a breath of smoke. The offering has been made, he whispered. After a long pause, Hansu turned from the carnage and headed back toward the altar. His footsteps echoed with purpose. There, standing at the edge of the ruin, was Jin waiting. You knew, Hansu said flatly. You planned for this. Jin didn't deny it. Watch your words, he replied. But then, he laughed. Not a chuckle, not nervous. It was the laughter of someone who had finally accepted their own madness. I get it now, Jin said, his voice trembling with conviction. I finally understand what I can do. He stepped forward. Use me. Hansu narrowed his eyes. Why should I? Jin looked up. His expression was calm but intense. Because I know who you are. That made Hansu pause. He didn't speak, just listen. You're not like them, Jin continued. You don't hesitate. You don't pretend. you act. Always. He thought back to when Hansu fought everyone alone. How he never delivered a killing blow, even when he could. Even when they attacked you. Even when they betrayed you. You never killed them. Why? He asked. Jin didn't understand it fully, but he felt something deeper beneath Hansu's silence. A reason. A code. You're not doing it out of kindness, Jin added. It's something else. Still, Hansu remained silent. Jin lowered his voice. Let me be your shadow. Let me get my hands dirty so you don't have to. He looked up again. If you leave, take me. If not, let me follow you. Hansu finally chuckled. A dry, weary sound. He walked closer. You're assuming a lot, but you're not wrong, he added. What I did just now, it wasn't easy, but it had to be done. His voice tightened. There wasn't any other way. Jin clenched his fists. Next time, I'll do it. I'll protect your path. I'll clean up your messes. He shouted. No one will stand in your way, not while I'm here. His voice cracked with emotion. Just focus on your goal. I'll handle the rest. Hansu tilted his head, observing the boy carefully. And what if I leave you behind? On purpose? Jin blinked. What? You're ready to follow now. But what if I decide you're a liability and abandon you? Jin's breath caught. For a moment, he didn't respond. Then he stepped forward. Then I'll grow stronger. His voice was steady. I'll find you again. And next time, you won't reject me. For the first time, Hansu smiled, not out of mockery, but acknowledgement. Good, he said. Then go. Jin looked shocked. You mean it? Hansu dropped his cigarette and crushed it beneath his heel. Don't get cocky, he said. Meet me here tomorrow. 1 o'clock. Jin nodded silently. Oh, and Hansu turned. Collect all the runes down there. 10 people died. Use them. Then he left. Jin stood frozen, watching him disappear into the dark. Inside his mind, Hansu was already calculating. Was Jin truly reliable? He didn't know, but he knew he'd need someone eventually. Back when SS gave him the jewel, she said, something else. There will be people in your way. You'll need someone to punish them for you. A justice enforcer. Monarchs never dirty their own hands. Someone else always does it for them. That's how it had to be. For Alice, for all monarchs. Hansu had originally thought Aren might fill that role, but now, Jin was a possibility. Still, there was risk. The second tutorial would scatter everyone. New alliances, new threats. Jin could change, but with 8 sacrifices complete and runes flowing, having someone ruthless on his side might be worth it. If he failed, there'd be no second chance. But if it worked, he'd be one step closer. He pulled up the system conditions for the second hidden piece. It was deceptively simple. Before the carnivorous beast destroys the altar, defeat it. On paper, it seemed manageable. In reality, it was almost impossible. But then it happened. A swirling vortex of light shimmered beside him. A portal brimming with ancient magic opened before his eyes. He stepped in without hesitation. A soft chime echoed. Secret mission complete. The system announced. At the center of the room sat a pedestal on it, a ring unlike any other. Hansu's eyes widened. He approached slowly. This must be it. He reached out and touched the artifact. An overwhelming surge of power jolted through him. The Ring of Naha, a relic of the Vampire King. An artifact of legends. He remembered the stories how even the Brisher monarch only got this through unnatural means. And no wonder no one had ever claimed it. This was Naha's ring, one of the numbered series. He clenched it in his hand. It was real. He had it. Artifacts were measured by many things, but color was the standard of legends. Common ones could evolve through runes. But this was something else. The numbered artifacts, rare, ancient, coveted. This one, number 9, Naha's ring. Its previous owner, Clemente. Through this ring, authorities had been born, and countless lives destroyed. Hansu couldn't believe he now held it. He understood now. It wasn't a random item. It was a symbol of something greater, and it wasn't even colored. It was colorless. The system chimed again. A new function unlocked. Authority of destruction now available. It could cancel out a target's abilities, skills, passives, everything. All neutralized, but only through direct contact. Once the timer ended, it would deactivate automatically. Hansu's mind spun. The power to nullify an enemy completely? It was absurd, but there was a condition. He had to have at least one stat matching the artifact's color, which, in this case, meant colorless. He would need more magical runes. A lot more. The portal faded, and Hansu stepped out. Outside, the world had changed again. Kang. A voice called. It was Minnie. She ran to him, eyes wide. You did it. You really killed that thing. Her excitement faded. A massive shadow loomed behind her. The altar was vanishing. Time had run out. Hansu nodded. I said I'd take care of it. She blushed, flustered. Still, I wasn't expecting. Jen stepped forward quietly. He really pulled it off, he whispered. Hansu turned to them. We've got some time before the next tutorial begins. Start hunting. Minnie hesitated. Actually, I wanted to say something. Hansu looked at her. I'm going to take a different path. His brow lifted. She smiled, sad but sincere. When I'm near you, I stop thinking for myself. I rely on you too much. I need to grow, she added. Luckily, Jin offered to join me. Jin smiled. She's welcome. We'll be fine. Minnie looked back at Hansu. Maybe we'll meet again, but right now, I think this is goodbye. He nodded. It's the right choice. She began walking away, but then she stopped. Turning back, she called, next time, I won't lose so easily. I'll be stronger. Hansu smiled faintly. I'll be waiting. He turned to Jin. You said you wanted a chance. Hansu said. It's yours. Jin's heart soared. That one sentence changed everything. Days passed. Then, without warning, the little demon gathered everyone again. His voice echoed across the terrain, smug and theatrical. He told the survivors their wait was over. The second tutorial was about to begin. He smiled wickedly and added that there were more participants than he anticipated. With the snap of his fingers, the world around them shifted. A strange light emerged from the ground, casting a pale glow beneath their feet. Survivors looked around, confused and unsettled. A young girl clutched her father, trembling. In contrast, Hansu stood calm and collected. He already knew this was coming. This was the start of the second trial. With a sudden jolt, everyone was transported. They reappeared in a different location, dazed and disoriented. The girl held her breath, frightened. That was when the little demon Diabolus appeared again, asking in a mocking tone whether everyone had arrived safely. The system chimed in. Before the tutorial could officially begin, they had to address one issue: group size. One man, already on edge, demanded to know what that meant. The system explained no room could exceed 7 people. Anyone above that limit had to be voted out or removed. Diabolus repeated it coldly. Only 7 allowed per room. As the survivors processed this rule, Dios counted they had 8. Each room would face a different scenario. The system clarified, but this first requirement would be identical for everyone. One man rubbed his chin. He'd suspected things were going too well until now. Now, he understood the real trial had begun. His attention drifted to Hansu. A bystander commented on the odd weapon Hansu carried. It looked more like a long needle than a sword. He admitted he hadn't seen Hansu fight, but guessed his ability had to be remarkable. A woman then stepped forward, attempting to bring calm to the tension. She suggested a plan: everyone should introduce themselves, explain their usefulness, and justify why they deserve to stay. That way, the group could decide fairly. She smiled warmly, hoping to de-escalate things. A confident man stepped forward. First, arrogantly, he presented himself as someone no one here could defeat. He spoke as though his place in the group was already guaranteed. Quietly observing, Hansu studied the man's aura. It radiated with magical energy. The man was using a rare ability known as Art Q1. This skill enhanced physical stats with magic and allowed him to channel it through his weapon. A solid skill, Hansu thought, though it had its limits. Still, it was better than most. The red-haired man continued, pointing out that if utility mattered, he had the edge. He introduced himself as Kangen and revealed he had a healing ability. Another man crossed his arms and introduced himself as a skilled combatant. But before he could finish, one of the survivors panicked. He pleaded for the group not to kill anyone, stressing that he was here with his family. Silence followed. The overconfident man turned back to the woman who suggested introduction. He challenged her to follow her own idea and go next. Flustered, she stepped forward and introduced herself as Jim. Nervous but determined, she said she'd now show them her ability. She walked toward a blonde man. Alarmed, he took a step back and asked why she was approaching. Her eyes gleamed with the dangerous intensity. He warned her, "Don't come closer. You'll regret it." She didn't stop. In one swift move, she struck him, stabbing the man in the back. The room froze in horror. Even the family men stared in disbelief. Jim knelt over the man's body, collected his runes, and called herself lucky. She admitted she hadn't been sure she'd win a spot, but was glad things worked out. With a smile, she offered to share the remaining runes with the others. One survivor looked at her closely. She was unpredictable, dangerous. He made a mental note. Don't trust her. In the distance, Hansu watched. He thought to himself that this chaos made things easier. People who had died before were now alive again, and because of that, the flow of the world was shifting. He smiled faintly. Things were becoming more interesting. The little demon reappeared, amused. He noted that this group had reached the 7-person requirement faster than the others. Now, it was time for the briefing. With a gesture, he revealed an enormous landscape, a winding mountain path that stretched up toward a smoking volcano. This, he declared, is the path of ascension. The task was simple: climb the path for the next 3 months. At the summit stood a dormant volcano, the gate to the 2nd floor. Anyone who reached it would move on, where the true world of adventurers awaited. With that, he vanished. The survivors began crossing the bridge, Hansu leading them. One man, trying to stay positive, encouraged everyone to work together, but another man grumbled, glaring at Hansu. "What's his problem?" he muttered. Then someone noticed something wrong. The bridge behind them was crumbling. "Run!" someone shouted. Panic broke out. Planks snapped and fell into the abyss. The group bolted, sprinting for safety. They reached solid ground just in time. Diabolus appeared again, amused. "Oops," he said with a grin. "Forgot to mention the island below is collapsing. The bridge is too, so be careful." The survivors glared at him. The fighter turned to Hansu, asking where he planned to go next. Hansu didn't answer. Frustrated, the man called him antisocial. Jim laughed and said they should just follow Hansu. He seemed confident enough. So they did. The forest ahead was dense. They walked for hours. Eventually, the fighter complained again. Still no sign of another bridge. He demanded answers. Where was Hansu leading them? That's when he noticed something odd. Hansu was chewing something. "What's that?" he asked. "Oak bark," Hansu replied calmly. "It neutralizes venom." The man was confused. "Why would you need?" Before he could finish, a massive serpent lunged from the bushes. Hansu reacted instantly. He grabbed the man and threw him to the ground, saving him from a fatal strike. As the snake reared back, Hansu's expression shifted. He'd found what he was looking for. The man, shaken, asked how Hansu had known. "Superpowers," Hansu said flatly. The snake bit Hansu's arm, but he didn't flinch. Instead, he struck back with precise, powerful blows. This was no ordinary monster. It was an adult rune serpent. Its behavior changed depending on the rune embedded in its forehead, but the pattern was never predictable. The fighter watched helplessly as Hansu battled the beast. He remembered something Hancho had once said about fighting these things, but it wasn't helping. He turned to the family cowering behind him. "Do something," he yelled. The father shook his head. "I have to protect my family." That infuriated the fighter. "Family or not, we're all going to die if you don't fight." He turned next to the bespectacled mage. "What's your excuse?" The mage pushed his glasses up with a grin. "If I get injured, who's going to heal all of you?" The fighter growled. "So that sword is just for decoration?" The mage smirked. "I'm a healer. Healing costs 3 strength runes. I'm not wasting them." The fighter had no comeback. Sheena stepped forward and asked him quietly, "So what are you going to do?" Defeated, he just stared at the grass. "Am I the only one who finds this all unbearable?" The mage scoffed and told him to charge ahead if he felt so righteous. Farther ahead, Hansu made a call using his communicator. A voice on the other end, Keel, asked how the new group looked. Hansu didn't answer directly. He asked how things were going on Keel's end. Keel replied that someone from the rescue team had appeared and that they were now trying to expand. "Any good candidates on your side?" Keel asked. Hansu thought for a moment. Himself, Jim the maniac, the manipulative mage, and the family still useless, but trying. "They're surviving," he said. "That's enough for now." Hansu silently observed the fighter, growing more suspicious. Something about him felt off. Too confident, too focused on gathering others. Monarch-like traits, but it was far too early for those abilities to awaken. Still, Hansu had seen enough signs. He thought back to what made a monarch different. It wasn't just strength or leadership. Monarchs could literally assign a symbolic mark to their allies, strengthening bonds and allowing instant coordination. These connections weren't limitless, but powerful. If he hoped to challenge people like that, Hansu would have to start thinking the same way, building something of his own. Their current surroundings were quiet. The remaining rune snakes and lizard-like beasts had been dealt with. As Hansu walked forward, he noticed fewer corpses along the path. The monsters were either dead or gone. That could only mean one thing: they were getting close. His steps grew slower, more deliberate. He had arrived. Before him was a strange area. Denser darker and darker. The nest of the mutant rune snake. This creature was no ordinary monster. Larger, heavier, more resilient, and worst of all, intelligent. Its scales shimmered differently from the rest, and it carried a pressure unlike anything around it. This was the rune-eating snake the beast Hansu had been searching for all along. The father from earlier, still trailing behind, hesitated. "Do we really have to fight that thing?" he asked. "Maybe. It won't bother us." Hansu didn't even look back. "If you're scared, leave. I won't stop you." The man stumbled over his words, not knowing how to respond. He looked toward his family and then back at Hansu. "We should at least stay together." Hansu turned to face him. "You misunderstood. We were never a group. We just walked in the same direction." The girl sighed. "So, we're splitting up?" The man grew anxious. "Wait, if you go alone, who's going to fight that thing?" Jim chuckled, her usual chaotic grin spreading. "You can't force him to stay. He's made up his mind." "What about you? Gonna run too?" The man's breath caught in his throat. He had no answer. Jim's words lingered like poison. Watching this unfold, the fighter narrowed his eyes. Rumor said Hansu was reckless, but was he really going to solo that monster? The doctor noticed the hesitation. "Still thinking of dragging him back to the group?" he asked. "Forget it. That kid doesn't listen." The fighter sighed deeply. "He's never healed me, you know. Guess he's not one for teamwork." But looking at Hansu's back, he felt a twinge of regret. Someone with talent like that heading to his death alone, it felt like such a waste. Meanwhile, Hansu was already moving. The giant snake lunged with terrifying speed. He dodged using his agility rune, but as soon as he removed it to counterattack, the serpent struck again. This fight wasn't going to be easy. Hansu dashed forward, jabbing with his needle weapon. His hits landed, but the creature's body was durable, tougher than the scaled snake he'd fought in the earlier tutorial. Still, it was no match for the carnivorous beast he'd once faced. He studied the creature's behavior. Every time he landed a strike, its rune would shift, converting into a resistance type to reduce incoming damage. It adapted on the fly. He realized that if he kept fighting like this, he'd lose the advantage. That meant one thing: change the strategy. He glanced at the cluster of twisted trees nearby. The formation looked almost like a nest. That had to be it. The creature's egg must be hidden there. He took off running toward the trees as expected. The beast panicked. It changed its rune again, not for defense this time, but speed. Charging to block Hansu's approach, he abruptly shifted direction, using the snake's distraction to his advantage. Turning on a dime, he sprinted back and struck the creature with a barrage of blows. His needle pierced deep, striking true. The serpent thrashed violently before collapsing. Victory. Hansu stepped forward, eyes locked on the object nestled in the middle of the twisted trees, a pulsing, faintly glowing egg. The rune-eating snake's egg. His prize. He picked it up gently. It felt warm, like holding a small flame. As he stood there, the egg began to crack. From inside emerged a smaller version of the beast, a baby rune-eating snake. It blinked up at him before slithering toward a rune on the ground. It devoured the rune, then spat out 2 different ones. That's how it worked. It needed to consume 3 runes. In return, it would choose 2 based on its owner's desire, a rare creature and an incredibly useful ally. For now, Hansu knew what he needed most: magical and physical resistance. He whispered to the little snake, telling it to rest. He'd accomplished what he came here for. Elsewhere, the family huddled behind some brush. The child looked up and asked, "Where are we going now?" Her father studied the map with a frown. The layout wasn't detailed enough, it showed almost nothing. Moving blindly wasn't safe. "We can't risk running into something," he murmured. "We don't even know who else is out there." His wife looked around nervously. I heard something," she whispered, pointing toward the bushes. The man spread his arms, preparing to defend his family, unsure whether to expect a monster or another person. To his relief, it was Hansu. "Why are you here?" the man asked. "Were you eating that thing?" Hansu simply replied, "It's dead." The man's eyes widened. "Already? And you're not even injured?" Hansu asked where the others from their previous group were. The man sighed, recalling what happened. A few hours earlier, after Hansu had gone off alone, the group started arguing. The commander had scoffed, accusing the family of using them as protection. Jim had backed him up, saying it was annoying to look after the weak. The doctor flat out said they should only stick with the strong. Then, they had blocked the path to prevent the family from following. "They left us," the man said bitterly. "Idiots. All of them." Hansu turned to leave. "We've already lost too much time." I'm moving. The wife tugged on her husband's sleeve. Let's go too. The family began following Hansu again. After a few steps, he turned. What are you doing? He asked. The man hesitated. You said we weren't a group. We're just going our own way. Hansu didn't respond, just kept walking. Inside, he found it oddly satisfying. They had no illusions now. Everyone was walking by choice. Vi muttered to herself, let them follow. I'll fight alone anyway. Time passed. Hansu moved from battle to battle, crushing wild beasts that stood in his way. It was exhausting, but worth it. His stats were growing quickly now. He set the baby snake down again, feeding it another rune. It hummed contentedly, digesting the magic and returning to runes of Hansu's choice. He smiled, focusing on resistances had been the right move. Later, while carving through monster corpses, Hansu stared at a chunk of meat and wondered if it was worth cooking. From behind, the girl blushed. He's amazing. He's getting stronger every second. She looked to her father. Should we fight too? The man shook his head. Just staying with him is already like a gift from the gods. They agreed they just needed to survive. Finding a safe place was the priority. Later, the family continued chasing after Hansu. The girl saw him heading toward a tunnel. He entered, eyes forward, not looking back. The family followed, nervous but hopeful. Inside, the tunnel opened into a massive underground space, a resting point, maybe. Other people were already here. The man smiled, relieved. We made it, still alive. Others in the tunnel turned. One of them looked surprised. Hansu, he's back? Without a single wound? Then, Diabolus appeared again, walking over to the family with a grin. You're awfully loud for someone who showed up last. He snickered. With a snap of his fingers, the tunnel doors slammed shut, echoing through the cavern. Everyone tensed. Diabolus grinned wide. Let's begin the large-scale event. He looked around theatrically. Welcome to the first layer of the first floor. A screen materialized above the participants, glowing with system instructions. 75 survivors remain. That's quite good, Diabolus noted. Very few casualties. He grinned wider. This event is different. You'll be fighting for tokens. Everyone stared in confusion. The tokens, he explained, are the only way to move between spaces. If you want to escape this collapsing floor, you'll need to collect enough. The second trial had only just begun, but now, the real chaos would start. And no matter how cruel the rules became, this world always found a way to make the struggle even more twisted. The demon grinned wickedly, laying out the new conditions for survival. He explained that while some islands were filled with treasure, others were crawling with deadly monsters and surrounded by molten lava. The survivors could end up on a central island, or one of the easier southern ones, if they were lucky. But luck alone wouldn't decide who got where. The system had its own game in mind. With unsettling enthusiasm, the demon revealed the transportation rules. Each boat could only hold 3 people, and to even board one, they needed 3 tokens. The catch? Using those 3 tokens would split the group. The travelers would be randomly scattered across different islands, regardless of their intentions. If only 2 people used 3 tokens together, they could remain side by side, but they still couldn't choose their destination. However, if a single person used all 3 tokens alone, they would have full control over where they landed. The crowd fell into stunned silence. Only Hansu seemed unfazed. The others were beginning to panic. With a devilish smile, the demon added that only 1 boat remained. All those strong enough to move on had already left. That lone vessel sat at the edge of the crater, map and all, waiting for the last to depart. The further the island from the center, the more dangerous it became. Collapsing land, stronger enemies, fewer resources. Only 30 minutes remained before the entire first floor collapsed. There were 25 boats in total, spread out across the crater. His grin stretched wider. Start now, he said, laughing. Survive. No matter how. That was the cue. Chaos exploded. Instantly, people shouted, scrambled, and shoved each other, begging for tokens or trying to snatch them by force. Arguments erupted as groups fell apart and alliances crumbled. Fists flew. Desperation turned friends into enemies in seconds. This is how it begins, someone muttered beside Hansu. Chaos is inevitable. Someone called out his name. Hansu turned. It was the family man, dropping to his knees in front of him. With tears in his eyes, the man begged Hansu to help his family, just this once. He explained that they didn't have enough tokens to reach the central island safely. If Hansu could just lend a hand, steal some tokens from others, they'd be able to survive. He wasn't asking for charity, he pleaded. He knew Hansu was strong enough to make it happen. Please, they're just innocents, he sobbed, pressing his head to the ground. Hansu looked down coldly. Then protect them yourself. The man trembled. Please, I'm begging you, help us. Nearby, someone barked at him to shut up. The tension thickened until a foot slammed into the man's chest. Henel appeared, kicking the man aside like trash. Grabbing his collar, Henel sneered. You're seriously annoying. Shut up already. Then he turned to Hansu. You, he said, smirking. Come with me. I'm gonna collect some tokens. Could use another strong guy. Hansu didn't reply, but Henel wasn't finished. I left my group. Don't care about those idiots anymore. You feel the same way, right? Henel continued. You and me, we're not like them. He revealed something more. A power had awakened within him different from his skill. A latent force tied to leadership. He claimed he'd already spoken to the leader about it and gotten approval. If Hansu joined, he could gain that power too. But Hansu shut him down instantly. No, Henel blinked in confusion. What? Hansu repeated himself. Sharper. I'm not interested. Henel's grin faltered. You don't get it. We're not like those useless people. This is about clan's real power. But Hansu had already made up his mind. He did understand the meaning of having a clan. In fact, he remembered all too well the bonds, the weight of expectations, the distraction from his true goals. This time, he wasn't here to serve anyone else's cause. He had his own mission. Realizing there was no convincing him, Henel gave a mocking laugh. Fine. He tossed a token to the ground. I stole this from that pathetic guy, he said, jerking his thumb toward the father. You can have it. Consider it an early gift. I'll see you on the central island. But in Hansu's mind, it was pointless. Henel wouldn't make it far. Suddenly, a blond man shouted, Hey, there's a token under him. Another chimed in. Grab it before someone else does. Several people lunged forward, fighting to claim the lone token. One man got it, but was immediately attacked by others who tried to take it from him. Screaming erupted in the chaos. Someone charged at the girl's father with a knife. The man held his hands up in surrender, pleading not to be hurt. The attacker grabbed the girl instead, lifting her by the collar. Your family, right? I'll give you a clean death. The room spiraled into madness. Shouts, screams, clashing blades. It felt like the place had been designed for a massacre. It wasn't a game. It was a slaughterhouse disguised as a test. The family was thrown into this pit just to entertain some higher power. Somewhere amid the chaos, Jim approached Hansu. So, she asked with a sly grin, why'd you turn Henel down? I had my reasons, Hansu replied flatly. Why do you care? Oh, I just have a proposal of my own. She lifted her arm, revealing a faint emblem, the mark of a clan. Come with me, she said playfully. He started to shake his head, and she chuckled. Didn't think so. Before leaving, she leaned in. Still, why haven't you left yet? Empathy. She tilted her head. Doesn't seem like your style. Their eyes locked. It was an eerie stillness, like the world paused around them. No one would ever know what passed between them in that moment, and no one would know what happened down there once this was over. Those who stayed behind would never survive. Inside, Hansu thought to himself, these people, I could have saved some of them, but this tutorial wasn't the same as the past. Here, the fairy's influence was overwhelming. The power of the system too absolute. Even he couldn't save everyone. All he could do now was move forward. He clenched his weapon and quietly apologized in his thoughts to the people he was leaving behind. He remembered what waited below the sea of poison. A grotesque death awaited those who didn't make it out in time. The fairies would watch and laugh as flesh melted and life was snuffed out. One by one, let them hate him. He'd live with it. Better that than watching them die slowly. Sometimes mercy meant walking away. Sometime later, Hansu was aboard a boat. The wind brushed past his face as he stared out at the collapsing land behind him. The demon appeared once again, looking strangely impressed. I didn't think you'd do it, he said, half laughing. But you did. He shook his head, amused. That was too easy though. Still, you're interesting. You've got the spark. You'll be fun to watch. As the boat drifted across the toxic sea, Hansu remained silent. The demon leaned closer. Don't worry, I won't tattle. He disappeared with a wink, leaving Hansu alone with his thoughts. I didn't return to save everyone, Hansu reminded himself. I came to win and win fast. There could be no hesitation. He locked his gaze forward. The next goal, the central island. A system screen flashed before him. A new announcement. Welcome, travelers. All 1,921 participants have arrived on the central island, the land of opportunity. There were 3 primary objectives here. Defend the castle that guarded the crystal. Strengthen themselves through the underground dungeon, the only one available on this floor. Survive the approaching monster waves. Arrows arrows flew through the air. Undead surged forward. A desperate battle raged as the defenders clashed with wave after wave. A man collapsed behind the defense line, exhausted. I can't keep going. Just one more month. Another shouted, slamming his hand against the barricade. Hold the line. Inside a strategy tent, voices clashed. Park Jungkook of the Monarch clan slammed the table. If this keeps up, we won't hold the crystal. We lost too much on day one alone. Jin from the Wayang clan crossed her arms. Let's wait until the other monarchs arrive before deciding. Hong Xia of the Noah clan scowled. No need. The strongest ones are already here. Lee Duct of the Smog clan leaned forward. Then what do you suggest? Park spoke clearly. We lack power and defense. We need unaffiliated players to join us forcibly if we must, Xia argued back. We can't control them. Park was adamant. Then force them. A new wave is coming, and we won't survive without them. Another monarch raised the idea of combining forces, clans, and outsiders alike. But the issue ran deeper. The outsiders had grown fast. So fast, they were nearly equal in numbers to the clans themselves. They called themselves the Basement Alliance, and they were no longer under anyone's control. As the tension built among the monarch clans, one suggestion rang louder than the rest. If the outsiders had grown strong enough to rival the clans, perhaps it was time to push them forward into danger first. Someone proposed sending the Forest Line clan ahead into the dungeons to minimize risk. A cold calculation, but not unexpected. A monarch from a smaller faction disagreed. Why should we be the first to die? Another, cloaked in purple, bit her finger in frustration. If the original 1900 had committed to defending the crystal from the start, we wouldn't be in this mess. She reminded the room that back when the floor opened, everyone had stood on the same side. Defense was shared because everyone's lives depended on it. But things changed fast. Once people started returning from the dungeons with powerful artifacts, priorities shifted. The allure of strength pulled them away from the walls. One by one, defenders abandoned their posts to chase personal growth. Now, with the monster wave looming, they were scrambling to cover the gaps, and it might already be too late. Just then, the tent's entrance opened. Someone stepped in, smiling. It was Jim, hands raised in mock peace. She assured everyone she wasn't there to start trouble, but she did bring news. There's a guy, she said, going absolutely nuts out there. He's fighting the Basement Alliance by himself. The room went silent. Even the most seasoned monarchs looked stunned. Outside the camp, the scene was pure carnage. A man knelt on the ground, begging for his life. But mercy was no longer on the menu. Glint of silver Hansu's needle drove into the man's shoulder. Calmly chewing on a cigarette, Hansu told him to run while he still could. The man whimpered in fear, eyes wide. Hansu's gaze didn't waver. Behind him, someone rushed forward with a knife. Without hesitation, Hansu spun and drove a strike into the man's chest. That artifact's wasted on you, he muttered. Someone with no aura doesn't deserve it. Another attacker lunged, a bald man, trembling with rage and fear. But when his blade struck Hansu's gear, it didn't penetrate. He staggered back. What? Now it's my turn, Hansu said coldly. In one clean motion, he delivered a crushing blow. This wasn't a fight. It was a statement. Around him, members of the Basement Alliance lay broken on the ground. And yet, Hansu didn't seem winded. It's exhausting, he said, trying not to kill them, but he knew it was worth it. These were resources, even if they were fools. Glancing around, he counted. One more left. Just then, the clan alliance arrived on the scene, weapons drawn. They froze in place. It was him, the boy from the reports, the one they dismissed. Now they knew. This was Kang Hansu, standing tall with arms crossed. Hansu turned to face them. Starting tomorrow, he announced, your alliance and the basement faction will merge. Gasps echoed. We'll rotate between hunting and defending the crystal. If anyone disagrees, he paused. Say it now. Silence. No one can lead without power, he continued. I'll take responsibility. Bring me anyone who's useful. They'll join my side. He glanced toward the outer area. The others will follow my orders. One of the clan leaders clenched her jaw. This only benefits him, she whispered. What does he really want? Another monarch turned to her. You're wondering that too? She nodded. Someone this powerful just showing up and taking over? There's no way he's not hiding something inside the tent. Hansu responded before anyone else could. I'm only here to set the structure. I won't interfere beyond that. But one monarch raised an eyebrow. You say that now, but what if you change your mind later? Hansu shrugged. Then stop me. The room tensed again until suddenly he vanished. Gasps filled the air. He's gone? Someone shouted. Another scanned the the area. No, it's just invisibility. One of them smirked. That trick won't work here. But then a sharp chill ran down the arrogant monarch's spine. A blade pressed against his throat. You're underestimating me, Hansu whispered behind him. The monarch's eyes widened. It wasn't invisibility, Hansu said. It was a perception disruptor. Dragon type. The monarch realized he hadn't just missed Hansu's movement. His very sense of presence had been twisted. The boy was on a different level. Hansu stepped back, lowering the blade. Before I came, I picked up a new item, he said. Fits the current situation. At that moment, the guards burst into the room too late. I'm not your enemy, Hansu told them. You all have your roles. Just play them. Without waiting for a reply, he turned and left. Outside, he sighed. These people, they've been fighting each other since day one. No coordination, no real unity. This won't be easy, but I'll give them time. This was just the start. He turned the corner and came face to face with Jim. Leaving already? She asked. That's no fun. He didn't stop. She stepped in his path. You remember our conversation, don't you? She asked. I gave you an offer back then. I'm giving you another one now. He looked at her without speaking. Jim smiled wider. So, do you want to join my clan? Hansu shook his head. No. She raised an eyebrow. Still the same. Answer, huh? Stepping closer, she lowered her voice. Don't you feel lonely, always walking alone? Don't you want someone next to you? She mentioned hearing about that girl, someone named Min, who had been with him before. Hansu didn't reply. His face remained unreadable, taking his silence as a rejection. Jim sighed. Fine. I guess it's a no again. She tried to joke, but it fell flat. He simply walked past her without a word. Watching him leave, Jim's smile vanished. Could have at least pretended to listen, she muttered. Then she whispered under her breath. Chi, idiot. Meanwhile, the command tent was buzzing again. Park's clan members began cleaning up after the previous fight, gathering bodies and sorting supplies. We need more support types, one of them said. A runner arrived. Southern wall secure. Good. Send the wounded that way. The rest can rest. One of the captains gave a quick summary. We kept the defense solid. No weak points left open. Some of the newcomers weren't cooperative at first, but it's under control now, the commander nodded. We couldn't afford to slip, not with that monster lurking out there. His tone shifted. That boy Hansu handled so many monsters alone. He paused. If he were trained properly, we could recruit him, but then he shook his head. Even so, with him, we'll hold. Suddenly, a sharp cry echoed. A rift had opened in the sky, and with it, the little demon returned, eyes gleaming with joy. Oh, did I interrupt something? He asked. Looks like you've had enough rest. Everyone in the tent froze. Nothing good ever followed his arrival. The demon waved his arms theatrically. Great news. Starting today, we're making things more fun. He laughed. Demons will now appear on the battlefield. Gasps rang out. He continued. They're not like the undead you've been fighting. Those guys didn't drop anything, right? But demons? Oh ho, they drop crystals. Now, he had their attention. These crystals can be exchanged for powerful artifacts, the demon explained, his voice gleeful. And better yet, they can also be used to escape. Everyone stiffened. Use enough crystals, he said, and 5 of you can leave together. He grinned wider. So, ready to start collecting? Before anyone could respond, the sky cracked open. A red portal bled light into the clouds. From within, a claw emerged, a monster hulking, red-eyed, snarling stepped through. A true demon. People screamed. It's coming this way. The monster stepped forward, hatred in its gaze, teeth gnashing, terror spread like wildfire. Someone pushed through the crowd. Step back, they yelled. The next phase had begun. The battlefield fell silent for a split second, just long enough for the viewers to sense the tension crackling in the air. King Hansu leapt forward, his blade glowing faintly with magic, aimed straight at the towering demon standing before him. This was no ordinary foe. As his sword crashed down, the creature raised a single arm and blocked the blow effortlessly. Before Hansu could strike again, the demon's free hand surged with power, preparing an attack. But Hansu twisted his body, narrowly avoiding the incoming strike. Watching from a distance, Benny muttered to himself, it was expected. Even degraded, a demon was no pushover. Regular attacks were proving ineffective, and Hansu's mist cigarette was out of fuel. He knew he'd need to rely on his rune-eating snake for defense, but that still wouldn't be enough to win. Instead, he decided to capitalize on speed, drawing strength from the rogue's lightweight boots, which granted a burst of swiftness for 1 minute. Hansu darted behind the demon. For a second, it looked like he might land a decisive strike, but even then, the demon spun around and blocked again. He continued slashing, launching strike after strike, but none could pierce its guard. Hansu stayed composed. This was not a fight he could afford to lose. Finally, one hit connected with the demon's torso, forcing it back. Enraged, the creature retaliated with a shockwave of dark energy. Hansu crossed his sword in defense, bracing himself. The impact hurled him across the ground, kicking up debris. As he rose from the crater, coughing, he knew it was time to unleash the Nurm Ring, the artifact of destruction that nullified abilities upon contact. Up on the bridge, eyes widened. The members of Park's clan watched Hansu battle the demon single-handedly. One of the subordinates turned to Park, asking if they should intervene. Park replied firmly if they hesitated, someone else would seize the glory. They charged in. Elsewhere, Xia and her team observed the clash. Her subordinate asked if they should help Hansu. Xia declined. She wanted to witness the limits of his strength firsthand. Back on the ground, Hansu was keenly aware of the crowd forming around him. They weren't here to help. They were waiting to pick off the remains. He cursed them silently, knowing the demon could activate its racial ability at any moment. He couldn't let himself be distracted. Despite towering over Hansu fivefold, the demon hadn't used any signature racial skills yet. That alone unsettled Hansu. Racial abilities varied wildly between demons. Was this one capable of wide area attacks? As if in response to his thoughts, the demon began channeling power. Hansu shouted for everyone to retreat. It was coming. The medics hesitated, uneasy. One wanted to fall back, but another insisted they stay close to claim the final strike. The demon grinned maniacally. Then, it roared and slammed the ground. Flames erupted in every direction. This was its racial skill. Infernal world. A cocky adventurer stepped forward, protected by a gleaming shield. Laughing, he claimed these flames couldn't touch him thanks to his artifact. All he needed was one clean hit to steal the reward. But the fire was overwhelming. He never got that chance. The flames consumed him in seconds. Panic broke out. Everyone scrambled, scattering away from the deadly blaze. Everyone except Hansu. He stood firm, eyes narrowed, raising his ring. He was going to end this now. Focusing the Nurm Ring's full strength, he drew his sword, then slashed at the fire. The arc of destruction tore through the inferno, extinguishing it instantly. Spectators gasped. The ground cracked from the force of his blow. They had no idea a single strike could wield that much power. Hansu muttered to himself, only he could handle this demon. Only he could match it. Without pause, the demon lunged forward. Flames danced around them as the two clashed again. Watching from afar, the red-haired leader of another clan frowned. He couldn't believe this was just another traveler. They were supposed to have started at the same level, yet the gap between them was enormous. He turned to his right, telling his strategist they needed a new plan. If this continued, their alliance would lose every edge they'd fought for. Late, near the outer walls, a girl leaned against a stone pillar, her eyes scanning the horizon. A man approached, asking if she was still waiting for someone. She replied cautiously. He told her not to bother. He had waited too, every day. It was pointless. She asked who he was waiting for. He answered, Kang Hansu, changing topics abruptly. He asked if she was still following the monarch's orders. With a grim tone, he hinted at how fragile the clan alliance had become, then questioned if she understood why. Before she could answer, he turned his head sharply, sensing something or someone watching them. Inside a hidden hall, Monarch Li and his aide observed the pair. The aide noted that Hansu had become obsessed with monopolizing demons, yet hadn't made any suspicious moves. Li responded that multiple spies were keeping tabs on him. The aide explained Hansu's routine: hunting demons, raiding dungeons, and barely resting. Tension among non-affiliated survivors was rising, constantly clashing with clans. Li wasn't surprised. Hansu didn't belong to any group. That made him unpredictable and dangerous. More people began entering the hall. The monarch grinned, welcoming them. He'd been planning for this moment. Something had to change, and today they would begin reshaping the future of the clan alliance. Back on the battlefield, a monster lay motionless, two of Hansu's weapons embedded in its corpse. He dropped his last needle, panting hard. Sweat poured down his face. That made 60. With that number, he could finally buy top-tier artifacts from the crystal shop. But he also knew if clans got their hands on those crystals, it would spark chaos. He had to act first. He opened the system menu and confirmed the exchange. he decided to purchase the artifact he was most familiar with, the Judgment of Dedos, a chain scythe, perfect for his combat style. As he swung it experimentally, it felt natural in his grip, deadly and precise. And no better time to test it. Suddenly, the ground split open, and skeletal arms clawed their way out. Undead monsters began rising from beneath. Hansu's eyes gleamed. He readied his new weapon. Only 10 days remained until the final showdown, and he wanted to see who would take the first step. 10 days passed. Inside the demon realm, a sinister figure grinned. The demon overseeing the tutorial whispered to himself that this batch of travelers would surely be entertaining. Something big had been prepared, an event for those who dared to outlast all others. In the fortress, chaos stirred as survivors looked around, confused. No monster wave had begun yet, but tension filled the air. Suddenly, from deep within the island, multiple demon corpses started merging together, fused by dark magic into a massive form. A new monster had appeared. It wasn't just any monster, it was the hidden boss of the central island. Within moments, the entity finished forming, a demoness cloaked in flames, her black fire dancing around her like living armor. She laughed wildly, eager for carnage. Hovering above, the small demon assistant warned the crowd if he were them, he'd stay away from the fortress walls. Not that they had anywhere else to run. Then he dropped a brutal truth. Only 2 options remained. Option 1, stay where they were, fend off the approaching undead, and use the crystal to escape. But there was a catch. These undead weren't like the ones they'd faced before. Stronger, faster, and swarming. The second option, enter the fortress and face the true threat, confront the Demon King himself. Gasps echoed through the group. One man shouted, "The Demon King? You never said anything about that." The little demon shrugged. He hadn't summoned the Demon King earlier because he might have wiped them out instantly, but now there was no choice. It was bound to happen. Then came another blow. The crystal would activate in 30 minutes. And it could only carry 500 people. The reality hit hard. Over half of them would be left behind unless someone defeated the Demon King. That was the only way they could all survive. The demon chuckled darkly, saying this would be fun to watch. He would wait patiently and see what decision they made. Among the crowd, a medic cursed. He thought all he had to do was survive 1 month, not this. Clapping cut through the noise. Monarch Lee stepped forward and suggested calmly that they use the crystal while they still could. In the distance, a boy wearing glasses narrowed his eyes. He could see right through Lee's words. This wasn't about saving everyone. Lee just wanted his own people to escape. Tension rose. The boy challenged the monarch, asking if they shouldn't at least try to protect more people instead of abandoning half. Lee remained expressionless, then asked if the boy had a better idea. Another survivor joined the argument, recalling how many had died on the first day. How could they possibly survive a fight against the Demon King now? Wouldn't trying to escape together be better than marching into certain death? Silence. Nearby, a young girl watched the conversation unfold, nervous. The atmosphere had shifted. Even though she was with the SM clan, fear crept into her thoughts. Then, from behind, a calm voice cut through the chaos. Kang Hansu, he said, there was only one real path forward. Defeat the Demon King. Everyone turned to him. The girl's anxiety grew worse. Why did he always appear at these moments? Hansu continued, explaining that if they fought over the crystal, at least 500 people would die. But if they challenged the Demon King, there was a chance they could all make it. Cyan K looked him over and smirked. So you're that confident you'll live through it? Hansu didn't respond. Then a girl in the crowd raised her hand. She declared that she would follow Hansu. The clan leaders couldn't be trusted. She believed in him instead. Her courage sparked something. Others joined her, raising their voices. More and more declared their support. They would fight the Demon King together and escape as one. But not everyone was pleased. From the shadows, a figure watched Hansu's influence grow. Panic stirred in their chest. If they let this go on, Hansu's momentum would become unstoppable. They considered ambushing him to crush the group's morale before the battle began, but Hansu saw it coming. He threw his chain scythe into the ground right next to the schemer's feet, warning her coldly that if she made a move now, she'd suffer the consequences. She froze. His aura alone made her knees buckle. Monarch Lee stepped in, saying it was time for everyone to cooperate. Whether they liked it or not, this fight had to be faced together. He'd go along with the plan for now. It seemed the decision was made. Still, Hansu held up a hand. He had one last thing to do. He approached the crystal, their supposed escape route, and wrapped his chain around it. In front of everyone, he shattered it. The crowd gasped. Monarch Li's face twisted in disbelief. Hansu stated that having an escape option only made people weak. If they were going to face the Demon King, they had to commit. No backup plans. Behind him, voices echoed in agreement. The survivors knew they had to head south and fight. Hansu looked at them one last time. He told them not to follow him. They needed to survive for their own reasons, not just trail after him. At that moment, the countdown reached 0. And so, this chapter ends. To see what happens next in this epic battle for survival, be sure to hit that bell icon and subscribe to Manhwa or Hub channel. We'll see you in the next one.